Ancient history is filled with monuments, artifacts, and structures that should have simple explanations. But many of them do not. In places far from modern cities, enormous blocks of stone were carved with clean angles, smooth surfaces, and astonishing symmetry. Entire walls were assembled so tightly that the joints remain nearly invisible even after thousands of years. Some ancient sites reveal layouts based on precise geometry, while others reflect careful orientation toward the sun or stars. These patterns suggest deliberate planning and technical understanding that continues to surprise researchers. The ruins themselves remain silent, but the precision preserved in stone still challenges the limits of what we think ancient builders were capable of achieving. The Saryazd Castle, hill core, the central nucleus of the ancient Saryazd fortress, located in Yazd province amid the Iranian desert, has long been regarded as one of the most enigmatic and advanced defensive structures of the ancient Middle East. This core was not only the storage center for valuables, food supplies, and treasures of the local population, but also a testament to an architectural sophistication far beyond what we typically associate with civilizations using primitive materials. What makes this place remarkable is the combination of strategic planning, unexpected construction techniques, and unresolved technological secrets, most notably the mud brick that has survived for more than a millennium, far exceeding the natural lifespan of such material. What do you think is the real secret behind the impossible durability of the mud brick walls at the Saryazd Castle hill core? A lost technology, unique environmental conditions, or an ancient knowledge we have yet to decipher? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The entire hill core operates like a passive defensive machine, consisting of 3 spiral protective walls that funnel invaders into a maze with no escape. Narrow corridors, sharp corners, looping pathways, and staggered door levels disorient anyone unfamiliar with the fortress within minutes. This level of sophistication led many archaeologists to describe the Saryazd Castle hill core as a citadel of cognitive disruption engineered to attack an enemy's psychology through echoing sounds, fractured shadows, and compressed spatial layout. But the deeper scholars study it, the more they recognize that the greatest mystery is not the labyrinth, it is the mud brick walls, which should have collapsed long ago, yet remain standing strong after more than 1,000 years under harsh desert conditions. What makes the hill core a true desert architectural legend is its thick, towering mud brick walls that curve and flow along the defensive layout. Enduring countless centuries of harsh temperature, shifts from 0 degrees Celsius at night to over 45 degrees Celsius during the day, and constant abrasion from desert winds and sandstorms, the walls still stand tall, as if they were carved from solid stone, rather than made of mud and straw. Modern scientific analyses of the material layers reveal a surprising fact: the ratio of straw mud and gypsum in each brick does not follow any standard formula recorded in surrounding regions. This mud brick possesses unusually high compression strength, exceptional water resistance, and a stable mineral crystalline structure rarely found in ancient mud brick. These properties give it a lifespan surpassing even that of fired bricks, an inexplicable paradox given that ancient Yazd had no large-scale kilns. Materials experts refer to this phenomenon as the lost technology of the Iranian desert. Locals claim that their ancestors knew how to create breathing bricks that adapted to the climate and naturally regulated humidity, but no exact formula has survived, and even modern reconstruction attempts cannot replicate the durability of the Saryazd Castle hill core. This leads to a bold hypothesis: Saryazd may have inherited its techniques from an older civilization, possibly predating even the Sassanid era. If you look at the surface of the hill core walls, you will notice that many sections are almost untouched by erosion, even though they should have been worn down to their core by desert winds. Some researchers compare this durability to the earthen walls of the Bam citadel in Iran. Although Bam suffered severe collapse during an earthquake, to the adobe structures of Peru, which have a shorter lifespan, or to the rammed earth constructions of China, which are durable yet still inferior in thermal expansion resistance. So why does the Saryazd hill core seem almost immune to the destructive forces of time? There are three main hypotheses. The soil of the Yazd region contains self-binding minerals that create a natural cement effect. The extended brick drying process, lasting many weeks, produces exceptional hardness. Or the wall core once contained a wooden reinforcement frame, although this wood has since decomposed and cannot be directly observed. However, the third hypothesis is controversial, because if wood had been present, it should have left clear chemical traces, yet no such traces have been found. What is strange is that the deeper you go into the hill core, the stronger the walls become, as if the most advanced technology was reserved exclusively for the most important inner zone. A network of winding corridors, trapdoors, gravity-based traps, and hidden turns exists in a space where every meter of wall appears to have been optimized. If the walls were weak, the traps would have collapsed long ago. But the hill core demonstrates something else entirely. Its mud brick walls are strong enough to preserve the entire defensive mechanism for millennia. Many architects argue that the core of the fortress resembles a material engineering experiment more than a military structure. The way the walls connect to the stone foundation, how the outer layer blocks heat, while the inner layer retains moisture, all of this surpasses the documented knowledge of the period. One little noticed detail is that in summer, the walls remain about 5 to 10 degrees Celsius cooler than the outside air, and in winter, the opposite occurs as the walls retain heat and create a stable environment inside the fortress, turning Saryazd's mud brick into a natural climate-regulating material. This raises questions about how such a primitive material could possess such remarkable thermal regulating capabilities, why its thermal performance surpasses many modern construction materials used in the Middle East, and why this technique never spread or appeared in other fortresses of the same era, suggesting that ancient builders knew how to create a material perfectly suited to the desert environment. But that knowledge disappeared without leaving a trace. This is the most suspicious point. Although the fortress is believed to have been built during the Sassanid or Muzaffarid period, there are no documents describing the brick-making techniques, the drying process, the mixture formulas, or the individuals responsible. And this has led many modern scholars to question whether the hill core was constructed on the foundation of or using the technology of an older civilization, or whether this was an esoteric technique reserved only for a group of royal architects and subsequently lost over time, or whether there once existed a desert craft tradition that was never recorded in historical documents. This contrast is the greatest mystery of all. Mud brick, considered a weak, cheap, and fragile material, has instead become the immortal backbone of the fortress's core. It not only withstands the weight of the three-level architecture, the harsh thermal fluctuations, the abrasion of desert winds and sand, the collapse traps, and the gravity-based defensive mechanisms, but also preserves its original form so well that archaeologists must acknowledge that the lifespan of the hill core walls far exceeds the capabilities of any comparable material in the region. The Serpent Mound of Ohio has long been considered one of the most mysterious structures in North American archaeology, not only because of its symbolically winding serpent shape, but even more so because of its absurd length over 400 meters, which leaves anyone viewing it from above astonished, asking who created such an enormous, smooth, precise curve without any ability to observe it from the sky. This unimaginable scale has sparked centuries of debate. If this was built by ancient indigenous peoples, how did they shape the Earth into a colossal creature whose form can only be fully understood from a bird's-eye view, and if they possessed surveying methods far more advanced than we assume? What does that say about the astronomical, mathematical, and organizational knowledge of the civilization that constructed it? With a structure over 400 meters long, shaped into a perfectly smooth serpent, as if viewed from the sky, who do you think truly built the Serpent Mound, and how did they do it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. A length of 400 meters is not merely a large number, it marks the boundary between what can be done through trial and error, and what requires systematic calculation. The Serpent of Serpent Mound is not only long, but also bends into multiple symmetrical coils. Each curve maintains stable smoothness, without angular breaks, distortions, or signs of repeated correction. Without an aerial view, it would be extremely difficult to know whether such a curve is correct. Yet every section of Serpent Mound suggests that its builders somehow knew exactly what the final form should look like. Many archaeologists have attempted to recreate the construction method using primitive tools, but the results always lead to a paradox. Creating a curve hundreds of meters long while maintaining precise proportionality in every subtle bend is extraordinarily difficult without grid measurements, ground-level blueprints, or some method of full area observation. Did they use a system of stakes spread across the landscape? Did they possess ground surveying techniques comparable to those used by the builders of the Egyptian pyramids? Or perhaps, as some bold theories propose, this mound was not the work of a single culture, but the culmination of astronomical knowledge transmitted across many generations, accumulated until the final shape was achieved. What makes Serpent Mound particularly enigmatic is that despite its enormous length, the serpent's body was not formed with straight segments joined together. It is a continuous flowing curve, as if drawn with a single sweeping motion. In art, creating a perfect curve several meters long is already difficult. Yet here, the ancients created a curve hundreds of meters long while preserving astonishing proportional harmony. Geophysical studies show that the soil layers forming the serpent were not casually thrown together. They were compacted deliberately in sequential layers, indicating this was not an impulsive act, but a carefully planned construction. Transporting soil, leveling the ground, maintaining elevation, and ensuring the overall shape all required a highly organized labor force. Did they divide the project into segments completed gradually, or was the entire form executed in a unified process? And how did they determine the ideal curvature so that the serpent would remain balanced in shape despite being too long for anyone on the ground to perceive fully? The mystery does not end there. The direction of the serpent's head, though this article focuses on its length and shaping, ties directly into questions of technique. The head opens into a crescent-like form, holding an oval object resembling either an egg or the sun, and crucially, the entire structure aligns precisely with the sunset of the summer solstice. This suggests the builders were not merely creating a serpent, they were constructing a massive astronomical instrument. For a curve extending more than 400 meters to remain accurately aligned with a fixed solar position, the builders must have possessed remarkable skill in observing and charting the sun. What came first? Did they design the serpent's form to fit the solar alignment, Or did they choose the solar direction first and then shape the serpent in the most aesthetically harmonious way? Either interpretation points to a level of sophistication far beyond what is assumed for prehistoric communities. The longer the serpent, the more likely directional error would accumulate. Yet Serpent Mound exhibits virtually no major deviation, indicating the builders understood solar motion extremely well. This leads to the greatest question of all: why build it so long? A serpent, several dozen meters long, would be sufficient as a ritual symbol. But a serpent stretching more than 400 meters, visible only from the sky, created in an era without any aerial capability, suggests something deeper. Some ancient astronomy theorists argue that the builders intended to send a message to the heavens, not to those on the ground. If the serpent was designed to be seen from above, who was meant to see it? God's ancestors. Or did they simply revere the serpent symbol so profoundly that they expanded it to cosmic proportions? Symbolically, serpents are associated with rebirth, water, lightning, and cyclical life, but stretching one into a colossal structure like Serpent Mound implies meaning beyond ordinary ritual. Some researchers observe that the serpent's size and curvature correlate with constellations such as Draco or long-term lunar cycles spanning decades. This fuels speculation that the builders were thinking not in human time, but in cosmic time. Yet despite all the theories, the greatest mystery remains the construction technique. There is no evidence they possessed blueprints, yet the result appears designed from a complete plan. No evidence of advanced surveying tools yet, the precision surpasses modern expectations. It challenges every assumption about ancient engineering capabilities. There is no evidence they possessed aerial perspectives, yet the structure can only be understood properly from above. Could they have used wooden observation towers? Did they mark the ground using solar shadows? Or perhaps the serpent was built across multiple phases, with each generation refining it further. If so, Serpent Mound is not only long in physical dimension, but long in time, a multi-generation project reminding us that ancient knowledge flows continuously and accumulates, not disappearing instantly. Though numerous theories attempt to explain the purpose and meaning of Serpent Mound, the most baffling question remains: how could a civilization without metal tools, without satellite maps, without modern geometric concepts, create a massive artwork with curves so flawless? This forces scholars to reconsider the level of development of prehistoric North American societies. Were they more advanced than we assume? Did knowledge vanish before history could record it? Or did a more sophisticated culture pass down the essential techniques? Ultimately, Serpent Mound endures not merely because of its scale, but because it silently challenges every explanatory model. It stands there hundreds of meters long, like an ancient river of memory, reminding us that the world once held hands, capable of creating things too vast to fully grasp, too beautiful to ignore, and too mysterious to ever completely decode. Chronicles of Georgia is one of the most striking monuments in Georgia, not only because of its colossal scale and architectural style, reminiscent of ancient relics, but also because of the mysterious atmosphere that envelops the entire site. Although it was built in the late 20th century, the monument presents itself as if it has existed for millennia, a paradox that compels anyone who sees it to wonder whether it is a legacy of the distant past or a message cast toward an unknown future. With 16 towering stone pillars, sharply carved reliefs, and a solitary location on a hill overlooking the Tbilisi Sea, the Chronicles of Georgia evokes the presence of a forgotten sanctuary where history, religion, and mysticism merge into an otherworldly space. One can stand within this stone plaza and feel as though they have stepped into a realm entirely separate from the city below, a world where time itself seems to stand still. What do you think is the true meaning behind the Chronicles of Georgia? Your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might reveal an entirely new way to interpret this mysterious monument. What makes the structure particularly remarkable is that despite its grand and ancient-looking appearance, the Chronicles of Georgia is in fact a modern creation designed by artist Svetari in the 1980s. This contrast has sparked endless discussions. Why would a contemporary artist choose the aesthetic of a long-lost ancient monument to narrate the history of a nation? Why was the monument built on such an enormous scale, reminiscent of megalithic architecture? To many, the Chronicles of Georgia resembles a new Stonehenge. Yet instead of being crafted by a prehistoric civilization, it is the product of the modern era, a choice that makes its true purpose even more enigmatic. The reliefs covering the stone pillars are the most mysterious and defining feature of the monument. They combine scenes from the Bible portraits of ancient Georgian kings and motifs laden with symbolic meaning, sometimes to the point of obscurity. Some reliefs follow a highly classical style, reminiscent of ancient Anatolian art, while others display modern, abstract tendencies. Scholars have attempted to decipher the symbols embedded in these carvings, yet no official documentation exists to confirm the meaning of any specific detail. Many cultural researchers describe the structure as a stone-encoded chronicle, where each relief forms a separate chapter of history. However, others argue that several scenes do not correspond accurately to the historical timeline of Georgia, as though they were arranged according to the artist's personal narrative rather than actual events. This interpretation gives rise to the idea that the Chronicles of Georgia is not merely a historical monument, but a message, a symbolic codex intended for those capable of understanding its deeper layers of meaning. Another element that heightens the monument's enigmatic nature is that it was never truly completed. Many carved sections remain unfinished. Some stone panels are only partially sculpted, and numerous parts of the original design were never executed. The fact that such a massive national-scale project was left incomplete without a clear explanation has led to countless theories. Some point to financial issues. Others claim that the political turmoil during the final years of the Soviet Union interrupted construction, while others believe the unfinished state was intentional, symbolizing that a historical monument can never be complete because history itself is always changing. This ambiguity gives the monument an in-between quality, as if it does not fully belong to any single era. But the most controversial mystery, and also the most emphasized point, is the debate over the monument's true meaning. Since the Chronicles of Georgia was erected, scholars, locals, and visitors have never reached an agreement on what it actually represents. There are three major interpretations, yet none is strong enough to achieve universal consensus. The first interpretation suggests that it is a national historical memorial created to honor Georgia as one of the earliest Christian nations. The reliefs depicting kings, national heroes, and key religious events appear to support this view. According to this perspective, the structure embodies national pride, a stone chronicle crafted for future generations to witness. However, critics of this interpretation argue that if it was simply a memorial, why would the architectural style be so symbolically exaggerated, extending well beyond the norms of traditional monuments? And why do some of the carvings depict scenes that are historically out of sequence? The second interpretation proposes that the monument is a symbolic code, a layered system of philosophical or religious messages encoded through imagery and artistic structure. Supporters of this view believe the monument was not intended to narrate history linearly, but instead functions as a multi-level symbolic language, a kind of stone script for those capable of reading its spiritual and historical architecture. Some scholars, noting the presence of motifs absent in conventional historical records, suggest that the artist created an alternative chronicle or a mystical school of thought blending Christianity, local traditions, and personal philosophy. Yet again, without any official documentation, this interpretation remains speculation. The third interpretation, and the most controversial, argues that the Chronicles of Georgia is a message across time, directed less at the present and more at future generations. This idea arises from comparisons with prophetic monuments such as the Georgia Guidestones. Some believe the choice of ancient aesthetics in a modern era is a reminder that even great civilizations vanish and only spiritual values carved into stone can endure. To these interpreters, the monument serves as a warning about humanity's fragility. History is not merely to be remembered, but to be heeded. Nonetheless, critics argue that attributing prophetic intention to the monument is an overreach lacking any supporting evidence. The coexistence of these three conflicting interpretations, none of which has prevailed, makes the question of the monument's true meaning one of its greatest and most enduring mysteries. Each visitor arrives with their own reading. Some see history, others see religion, others find philosophical reflections on human existence, while some simply experience it as the relic of an unrecorded civilization. The blend of ancient appearance, multi-layered symbolism, unfinished architecture, isolated placement, and interpretive controversy makes the Chronicles of Georgia feel like a monument from another timeline, an artifact suspended between what has passed and what has yet to come. It belongs neither fully to the past nor the present, but stands as a message to the future that humanity continually attempts to tell its own story, even when no one can be certain that the story will ever be understood as originally intended. The Georgia Stone, or Georgia Guidestones, has long been one of the most controversial modern mysteries in the United States, not only because of the inscriptions carved onto the giant granite slabs, but also because of the appearance of the enigmatic man named R.C. Christian, the figure who laid the foundation for this strange story. To this day, the true origins of the builder remain completely shrouded in darkness, turning the monument into not just a physical structure, but also a living legend of secrecy, conspiracy, and purposes never revealed. Most researchers agree that no other modern structure has achieved such an absolute level of anonymity as the Georgia Stone. In your opinion, was R.C. Christian truly a mysterious individual, or merely a representative of an organization behind this monument? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From the moment R.C. Christian walked into the Granite City Company office in 1979 to commission the monument, he deliberately left as few traces as possible. His real identity was never verified. All documents used an alias, and even the bank was instructed to maintain complete silence about the funding source. This raises a major question: who possesses the financial means and power to construct a stone monument weighing over 100 tons and still remain completely hidden? This mystery has led many to believe that R.C. Christian was not a lone individual, but a representative of a secret organization, perhaps an esoteric society, a group of philosophers, or even a network intending to send a message to the world after an apocalypse. The inscriptions, carved in 8 languages – English, Spanish, Russian, Hebrew, Arabic, Hindi, Chinese, and Swahili clearly show that they were aimed at a global audience, not just American society. But a bolder hypothesis suggests that R.C. Christian was merely a front for a powerful group testing humanity's reaction to a new global code disguised as a strange monument in the rural outskirts of Georgia. Why they chose to remain anonymous has no definitive answer, but that silence has allowed conspiracy theories to flourish for 4 decades. The granite frame of the Georgia stone carries multiple layers of mystery. The slabs, nearly 6 meters tall and weighing tens of tons, were erected with astonishing precision, especially the slit that tracks the sun and the alignment with the North Star. The combination of astronomical design and multilingual inscriptions has led many to call the site the American Stonehenge. But the difference is that Stonehenge belongs to prehistory, whereas the Georgia stone was created in the 20th century. So why the need for secrecy, as if performing an ancient ritual? What compelled the builder to hide in the shadows as though he knew the monument would ignite intense controversy in the future? The 10 guidelines carved onto the stone, especially the line, "Maintain humanity under 500 million," have been the source of endless debate. Instructions about a common, global language, international law, balance with nature, reproductive management, all of these have led many people to fiercely criticize the monument as a blueprint for a new world order after a global catastrophe. This controversy deepens the mystery of R.C. Christian. Why would someone dare to propose global rules, yet refuse to appear publicly? Perhaps the builder intended the monument as a reminder for the future, rather than a political statement in the present. In the few surviving documents, R.C. Christian described himself merely as a representative of a small group of loyal Americans who believe humanity needs a new compass. But no evidence confirms that this group actually existed. Some even suggest the entire story was a large-scale social experiment. How would humanity respond when presented with a set of global guidelines from an anonymous source? Interestingly, the plaque near the monument further deepened the ambiguity by stating that a time capsule was buried beneath it, though the opening date was left blank. When the monument was destroyed in 2022 and the area was excavated, no time capsule was found at all. This leads to 2 strange possibilities. Either the builder wanted to create the illusion of something hidden underground, or there truly had been a plan to bury an object that was abandoned from the beginning. Either way, the lack of transparency continues to envelop the entire story. Another peculiar detail is that no one knows the true cost of the monument. The construction company only confirmed that it was an unimaginably expensive project, yet the entire amount was paid in full, upfront, without loans or guarantees. This indicates that whoever commissioned it had immense financial resources. But why would someone wealthy and globally minded hide behind an alias and disappear entirely after the project's completion? There was no inauguration ceremony, no speech, no photographs, no preserved records. A phantom appeared to erect a monument and then vanished forever. That is what makes the mystery of the Georgia stone uniquely compelling among modern structures. All these elements combine into a permanently enigmatic atmosphere. The monument carries the breath of antiquity, the imprint of futuristic philosophy, and the feeling of a secret organization observing the world from afar. And when the explosion in 2022 destroyed part of the structure, the final question grew heavier. Was someone trying to erase all traces of a message never meant to be fully understood? Or was the destruction itself part of a story the builder had anticipated, a mysterious cycle known only to them? The Georgia stone no longer stands as it once did, but the mystery of the builder's identity the deepest and most difficult question of all remains intact, even strengthened by the monument's absence. Instead of fading over time, the question, "Who is R.C. Christian?" has become the center of all analysis. A monument can be destroyed, but a deliberately crafted mystery can persist indefinitely. And perhaps that was the true purpose of the Georgia stone, not only to deliver messages carved in stone, but to plant within humanity an unending question, one about the power of the unseen, and the plans we may never have the chance to fully comprehend. Narin Qal'a Mabod consistently appears among the most enigmatic ancient structures of Iran, not only because of its imposing presence in the desert, but also due to the numerous mysteries surrounding its age, construction techniques, and original purpose. Some believe the fortress has stood for 4,000 to 5,000 years, while others suggest it may even predate the earliest recorded empires on the Iranian plateau. Ironically, no ancient texts document who built it, when it was built, or why it was constructed. All that remains are layers of mud brick, spiraling terraces, rising upward, and puzzling architectural traces perched on the edge of an arid landscape. This silence in the historical record only deepens the allure of Narin Qal'a as an unsolved riddle. The most debated, perplexing, and persistent mystery concerns its mud brick construction technique, a material inherently fragile, prone to erosion, and easily damaged by rainwind and temperature shifts. Yet here it endures like solid stone for millennia. Typically, mud brick buildings in the Middle East last only a few hundred years, or at most, a single millennium under ideal preservation conditions. But in Mabod, Narin Qal'a defies architectural logic. It has survived sandstorms, heavy rains, scorching heat, surpassing 40 degrees Celsius, dry desert winds, and even earthquakes in the region. Its bricks have not merely avoided decay, they have fused into a hardened mass, prompting some experts to compare them to bricks fired with a technique no longer known in the modern world. What makes the mud bricks of Narin Qal'a nearly indestructible? The question remains unanswered. Some theories propose that the ancient builders used a secret additive, perhaps mineral salts, natural gypsum, or a special plant resin to strengthen the mixture. Yet current material samples have not yielded conclusive results. Others suggest the bricks were compressed under immense pressure or fired at high temperatures, though this contradicts archaeological evidence, as firing such massive quantities would require technologies and fuel sources far beyond what ancient civilizations of the region were believed to possess. Another bold hypothesis argues that the structure's multi-tier design and spiraling layout helped distribute environmental stress, reducing the risk of cracking. Regardless of explanation, the undeniable truth is the structure has far outlived the expected lifespan of its own building material, forming the greatest paradox of ancient Iranian architecture. In addition, Narin Qal'a's sheer size intensifies the mystery. A mud brick structure rising 40 meters high, remaining stable without collapse for thousands of years, is astonishingly improbable when judged by ancient architectural standards. Building scaffolding for such height would have posed a significant challenge. Maintaining structural integrity would have been even more difficult. Yet the fortress remains almost fully intact. This has led many to believe that the ancient builders possessed construction knowledge that has since vanished, or they understood how to harness desert climate conditions in a way we have yet to replicate. Surrounding the mud brick mystery are equally compelling questions. Why build such a massive structure in the middle of a desert, an area lacking abundant water, lacking clear military advantages, and not particularly ideal for settlement. A true fortress should, in theory, sit near water trade routes or naturally defensible terrain. Yet here stands Narin Qal'a alone on a sun-scorched mound. This placement suggests the structure may have served a different purpose, perhaps religious or astronomical. Its spiraling tiers, sun-aligned openings, and tiered shape, reminiscent of a step pyramid, have fueled speculation that Narin Qal'a once functioned as an early astronomical observatory or a ceremonial center in prehistoric times. Seen from above, the shape of Narin Qal'a resembles step pyramids of the Americas more than traditional Middle Eastern fortresses. The ascent follows a spiral path around a central core, an extremely rare design in mud brick architecture. Inside underground chambers, narrow tunnels and deep recesses suggest complex internal functions. Some rooms appear suited for storage, others resemble water reservoirs. Still others are narrow and elongated in ways that do not correspond to domestic or military use. These peculiarities have led to a range of hypotheses. It may have been an administrative hub, a defensive settlement, or a multi-level ritual structure with symbolic significance. Yet none of these interpretations provide a definitive answer. Compounding the mystery is the complete absence of written records about Narin Qal'a. A fortress of such scale, if militarily significant, should have appeared in texts, chronicles, or local legends, but none exist. This silence has led scholars to suspect that the structure may have been built by a much older, unrecorded community, predating known civilizations, and later reused by subsequent groups unaware of its origins. If true, Narin Qal'a may be a surviving prehistoric relic, a witness to a chapter of human history that formal records never captured. Within this context, the question of the eternal mud bricks becomes the central key to unlocking the structure's secrets. If researchers can determine the formula technique or process behind these super-durable bricks, we may finally understand the technological capabilities of the builders and perhaps accurately date the fortress. But every scientific analysis so far has only deepened the mystery. Narin Qal'a's mud bricks differ from other ancient bricks in the region. They are more cohesive, nearly waterproof, and extraordinarily compression-resistant, comparable, some say, to soft-fired ceramic. Their arrangement, layering, and orientation reveal a sophisticated technique far beyond the rudimentary mud brick methods commonly documented in ancient architecture. This raises further questions. Did the builders possess advanced, material knowledge beyond our assumptions? Did they discover a natural process of mineralizing mud brick? Did Maybod's climate and geology contribute to a unique preservation effect? Or was the fortress repaired repeatedly throughout the centuries in ways archaeology has not yet detected? Each hypothesis opens possibilities, but none resolve the puzzle completely. Thus, Narin Qal'a remains a silent, nameless structure with immense historical weight. It challenges our understanding of ancient architecture and forces us to reconsider the capabilities of prehistoric communities in Iran. Perhaps we have underestimated them. Perhaps their technical knowledge has been entirely lost. Or perhaps the structure belongs to a civilization so ancient that history never had the chance to record it. Until deeper archaeological research uncovers new evidence, the greatest mystery of Narin Qal'a will continue to revolve around its eternal mud bricks, a material seemingly fragile, yet stronger than any modern theory of construction can fully explain. And as long as this question remains unanswered, Narin Qal'a will stand as one of humanity's most enigmatic ancient monuments, a mud brick tower defying both time and our understanding of the past. What do you think truly allowed the mud bricks of Narin Qal'a to remain solid for thousands of years, a lost construction technique, a rare natural reaction, or something far beyond our current understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Nuragic giants' tombs on the island of Sardinia have long been considered one of the greatest mysteries of ancient Europe, not only because of their monumental scale, far beyond what one would normally imagine for a Bronze Age structure, but also because of construction techniques that remain inexplicable even today. These tombs stretch from 10 to 30 meters, sometimes reaching 40 meters, with stone slabs weighing several tons, standing in rows, front facades curved like a crescent moon, or a pair of mythical horns, all forming an impression of an ancient community that was not only powerful, but also possessed an organizational capability and technical knowledge far beyond the conventional understanding of their era. But what is most shocking is not the size nor the ritual-colored architecture, but the way these massive stones were joined with such precision that it seems to defy the logic of ancient engineering. No wheels, no metal pulleys, no cranes, no modern cutting machines, yet the Nuragic people were able to process stone surfaces to an eerily uniform flatness, placing them side by side in a perfect curve, forming a structure that has stood for thousands of years without any binding mortar. These stones were not simply placed. They were aligned vertically and horizontally with absolute accuracy, leading archaeologists to concede that this level of precision far exceeds that of many Mediterranean structures of the same period. What deepens the mystery further are the marks found on the stone surfaces. Many blocks are polished in a way that evokes the use of hard metal tools or even high-speed rotary tools, yet archaeological evidence shows that the Nuragic civilization did not possess metallurgy advanced enough to create such instruments. Some stone slabs also bear sharp, even-angled cuts, as if Nuragic craftsmen mastered a stone-working technique that we still cannot fully replicate using traditional manual methods. Furthermore, the method by which ancient builders erected these upright stones remains unanswered. Some slabs stand 3 to 4 meters tall and weigh from several tons to over 10 tons, lifted from the ground and embedded deeply into bedrock to remain upright. For a society without widespread draft animals and without lifting mechanisms transporting such massive stones across kilometers of uneven terrain, and positioning them precisely requires an engineering system we still do not understand. Many hypotheses have been proposed using large wooden levers, stone rollers, and the combined strength of dozens or hundreds of people. But modern experiments show that the level of precision the Nuragic achieved is nearly impossible to match using only manpower and primitive tools. In some tombs, stones are arranged in a flawless arc, which means they had to calculate curvature, radius, joining angles, and the standing position of each stone slab before construction, because even a minor error would destabilize the entire structure. However, no traces of technical drawings, no standardized measuring system, and no evidence of advanced mathematical methods have been found. The mystery of stone joining becomes even greater when archaeologists discover that many of these structures remain intact despite enduring thousands of years of sea winds, minor earthquakes, and the harsh climate of Sardinia. This suggests that their mortarless stone joining technique was not accidental, but a well-understood and intentionally applied knowledge. Some experts believe the Nuragic people knew how to lock the stones, using their natural weight and balance points, creating a dynamic balance system similar to techniques used by the Egyptians or the builders of Stonehenge. Yet even this does not fully explain the absolute precision of their alignment. Additionally, the facades of many giants' tombs were constructed around a massive central stone slab, sometimes weighing several dozen tons, symmetrically carved and placed with astonishing accuracy. It resembles a kind of ceremonial gateway opening into a sacred space, and this very slab is at the center of ongoing debates. How could it be moved and erected without even a few centimeters of error? If misaligned, the entire facade would lose balance and collapse over time, yet these colossal stones are still standing today. Another puzzling aspect is the architectural uniformity across the island. Over 100 colossal tombs have been discovered across Sardinia, all following the same technical logic. This indicates that the Nuragic people possessed a system of transmitting knowledge and a workforce of highly trained craftsmen. However, this civilization left no written language, no records, no descriptions of their structures or tools, raising the question of how such technical knowledge was maintained across generations. The extraordinary precision in stone alignment also connects directly to the tomb's axes. Most of them face the point where the sun rises on special days, such as the winter solstice or equinox. This means the Nuragic people not only knew how to erect huge stones, but also how to align coordinates using ancient astronomical knowledge. Even more remarkable is that they achieved this on uneven sloped terrain while keeping the entire structure perfectly balanced. The combination of stone-building skill and astronomical understanding suggests that these were not merely burial monuments, but possibly a type of ritual astronomical station where the living communicated with the divine through celestial events. Moreover, the area in front of the tomb often forms a semicircular space with stones arranged in an arc that creates notable acoustic resonance. Many sound experiments show that when standing at the center and producing low-frequency tones, the entire structure amplifies the vibrations in a way that makes the listener feel a bone-deep trembling. This strengthens the hypothesis of spiritual ceremonies. Perhaps the Nuragic people knew how to use sound to influence emotions or spiritual states, and the precision of stone placement was essential to generating this effect. Among the many mysteries surrounding the Nuragic giants' tombs, the enigma of their colossal stone joining technique remains at the core of all debates. It is so profound that some researchers question whether the Nuragic people possessed knowledge or tools not yet recognized by history. Some theories claim they interacted with more advanced Mediterranean civilizations, though evidence is lacking. Others suggest they achieved a high technical level that was later lost as society changed. Meanwhile, some outside academia believe that such monumental and precise constructions exceed the capabilities of a non-literate society and may connect to some ancient knowledge that vanished over time. Regardless of which theory is correct, the presence of these precisely joined massive stones stands as undeniable evidence that the Nuragic civilization once reached a level of sophistication that mainstream history has yet to fully reconstruct. What they left behind is not stories or writings, but multi-ton stones standing upright through millennia. A challenge to future generations about knowledge humanity once possessed but has forgotten. And that is why the Nuragic giants' tombs remain among the most fascinating ancient mysteries, compelling anyone to wonder how, with what tools, and with what knowledge did those nameless people create structures that even modern engineering sometimes struggles to replicate. In your opinion, what is the greatest mystery behind the Nuragic giants' tombs? How do you think the Nuragic people were truly able to join massive stone slabs with such astonishing precision? Lost knowledge, cultural interchange, or something beyond our current understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the arid Al-Hazm desert of Saudi Arabia, where scorching winds scatter sand across millennia, there exists a stone complex so strange that archaeologists have given it a deliberately enigmatic name, the Stonehenge of Arabia. This is the Al-Rajajil standing stones, one of the most difficult ancient mysteries of the Arabian Peninsula, where hundreds of tall, massive stone pillars, each weighing tons, stand silently on sandy hills like forgotten witnesses. When encountering Al-Rajajil, the first impression is not antiquity, but absurdity. How could a region with no favorable conditions for construction host a monument comparable in scale to Western megalithic sites? And more importantly, what enabled prehistoric people 6,000 to 7,000 years ago to raise such colossal stones upright? If the stone-lifting technology at Al-Rajajil truly surpassed what we believe Neolithic people were capable of, what do you think that implies? Are we underestimating ancient knowledge, or could there have been an entire civilization that disappeared from history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. To understand this mystery, we must return to the story of its age. Modern archaeological research suggests that the site may have been built during the Neolithic period, possibly older than many of the earliest Mesopotamian cities, meaning it appeared before the invention of writing. Yet despite its great age, the site shows signs of a systematic architectural mindset, not random arrangement. Over 300 stone pillars are scattered across a vast area, each about 2 meters tall. Erected in groups of 3 to 7 stones, always standing, according to some pattern still undeciphered. Viewed from above, Al-Rajajil resembles a gigantic network of symbols carved onto the land, a language of stone that modern humans cannot read. For years, archaeologists have proposed various theories. The site may have been a ceremonial center for an ancient community where nomadic tribes gathered seasonally. It might have been a primitive astronomical observatory, since many pillars align with sunrise or sunset during important times of the year. Or perhaps it served as a marker along ancient trade routes connecting Mesopotamia with northern Arabia when the climate was more temperate. Yet regardless of the theory, we still cannot answer the biggest question: why did they need to erect hundreds of massive stones arranged in such a complex pattern? And then we arrive at the most crucial mystery: the technology used to erect the stones. This is what makes Al-Rajajil truly perplexing. The pillars were not formed by nature. They were quarried from a site located some distance away. These stone slabs, over 2 meters tall and weighing from hundreds to more than 1,000 kilograms, were cut-shaped, roughly hewn, and then raised upright into the ground. The shocking part is there is no evidence that the people of that era possessed advanced metal tools, nor did they have lifting mechanisms like those used by later civilizations. So how did they do it? Extracting stones from a quarry was already difficult, but transporting hundreds of such heavy slabs across rough desert terrain was nearly impossible. Without wheels and without strong draft animals, what technique did they use? Some suggest wooden levers, yet the region historically lacked large trees. Others propose tripod wooden rigs. But such structures would require materials unavailable in this environment. Still others think they used pebble tracks or compressed sand ramps, yet none of these have clear archaeological support. The only certainty is they had a method, a technique unknown to us today. Examining the surfaces of the pillars, researchers discovered that the stones were not crudely carved like those of typical nomadic groups. Instead, they show a striking uniformity in height and thickness, indicating a deliberate production process. The stones were not merely raised, they were erected with clear technical intent. Minimal tilt, burial depth, precisely sufficient for balance, and most importantly, groups of pillars consistently align towards specific directional axes with deviations of only a few degrees. This means the ancients did not just know how to raise stones, they knew how to orient them, how to calculate, how to arrange the entire complex to form a directional system. The problem is, how could a supposedly primitive nomadic culture possess such astronomical and geometric knowledge? This is the heart of the mystery. Some bold scholars argue that our Rajajil may be evidence that the Arabian Peninsula once hosted a culture far more advanced than previously believed, possibly even a predecessor to known civilizations such as Mesopotamia. Others suggest that the pillars' uniformity reflects a shared knowledge network among ancient tribes across Western Asia, raising the question, did ancient cultures interact far more extensively than we think? As if the construction technology weren't mysterious enough, the location deepens the puzzle. Today, the site lies within a barren desert, but archaeological evidence shows that thousands of years ago, the area was more fertile, inhabited, and perhaps part of an important trade route. This raises the possibility that it once served as a ritual gathering place for multiple tribes, a major cultural or religious center in prehistory. But if that is true, why was the complex abandoned? Many pillars are broken, toppled, or only partially erected, scattered as if the ancient builders suddenly disappeared. Perhaps climate change forced the community to migrate. Perhaps conflict drove them away. But whatever the reason, the fact that they never returned to complete Al-Rajajil leaves behind a sudden rupture in history, as though a grand project was halted by an unseen force. The mystery deepens further with the discovery of shallow burials, small house foundations, and circular stone structures surrounding some pillar clusters. This suggests prolonged habitation or ritual activity. Yet this raises sharper questions. If this was a ceremonial center, why erect such enormous pillars? If it was an observatory, why is the pattern too complex to align with a single celestial system? If it marked trade routes, why use multi-ton stones instead of smaller, more practical markers? These questions make Al-Rajajil an unsolved mystery, unlike any other monument whose stones seem determined to conceal whatever they once meant. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of this structure is the sense that it was not shaped by nature. It was built with intent, an intent that our era has yet to understand, decipher, or interpret. From quarrying, transporting, erecting the pillars, to aligning them into a coherent directional system, all of it suggests a technological capability far beyond what official history attributes to Neolithic inhabitants. Thus, the Al-Rajajil's standing stones are not merely ruins, they are a challenge to science. They show that in the seemingly barren Arabian deserts, there once existed minds that could calculate construct in code, meaning in stone, and build monuments that would astonish humanity thousands of years later. The ancients left no writings, no epics, but they left upright stones in the desert, a silent declaration that they were strong, ingenious, and far more enigmatic than we imagine. And perhaps only when we unravel their stone-raising technique, the mystery embedded in the heart of Al-Rajajil, will we truly understand what they intended to convey to the future. Among the mysterious structures left behind by the Maya civilization along the Caribbean coast, the Tulum Temple of the Wind stands out as a small yet enigmatic construction, perched on a cliff jutting directly into the endless blue sea, where strong winds, massive waves, and tropical storms rage throughout the year. From a distance, the temple appears modest, almost like a simple watch post, but up close, it reveals itself as one of the most perplexing architectural works of the Maya location far too dangerous for construction, a small structure with unexpectedly precise proportions, and above all, its extraordinary ability to survive centuries of violent storms. Each of these elements merges into a mystery that captivates archaeologists and enthusiasts of ancient architecture, alike those who seek an answer to the question, how can such a small structure withstand the fury of nature for so long? What do you think is the real reason behind the Tulum Temple of the Wind's extraordinary durability, surviving countless storms for centuries? Share your thoughts in the comments below. First, its extremely unusual placement must be emphasized. It does not lie within the protected heart of the city, nor is it shielded by walls or surrounding structures. Instead, it stands alone on a steep cliff overlooking the ocean, an area where even modern architecture would require specialized reinforcement to remain stable. Yet since the 13th century, the temple has remained nearly intact, suffering only minimal erosion over time. This has led many to believe that the Maya possessed deep knowledge of terrain, wind patterns, humidity, and the load-bearing properties of bedrock, enough to identify the single most stable, balanced point on the cliff. Such precision would be difficult to achieve if based solely on experiential intuition. The structure of the temple is far from simple. Although small, its stones are tightly fitted together without large gaps, forming what resembles a natural gravity lock system. Coral and limestone blocks were shaped to correspond to the direction of the incoming sea wind, reducing direct force impact and dispersing pressure sideways. Modern engineers who have studied it are surprised the walls lean ever so slightly, just enough to prevent strong winds from being sucked inside, but subtle enough not to be immediately noticeable. This delicate detail gives the temple an aerodynamic quality uncommon in typical Maya constructions. Another crucial factor is the foundation. The natural bedrock of the Tulum cliff is inherently strong, but what shocks researchers is how the Maya prepared it before construction. Archaeological evidence indicates that they carefully leveled specific sections, removed loose fragments, likely to cause slippage, and created a stable surface that allowed the temple to anchor itself into the cliff as if it were part of the natural formation. This prevented the structure from being uprooted during major storms, when winds can reach devastating speeds, strong enough to topple ancient trees and destroy modern roofs. Some scholars even suggest that the Maya intentionally calculated wind direction so the temple would never take a full frontal impact, instead always sitting at a slight angle that disperses force. But the mystery extends beyond construction techniques into the materials themselves. Maya lime mortar, less frequently discussed than Roman concrete, has proven surprisingly durable, especially in humid, salty coastal environments. Researchers have found evidence that the Maya may have mixed in organic additives such as tree resin, plant fibers, or naturally occurring minerals heated to the right temperature, creating a mortar resistant to cracking and capable of maintaining cohesion for centuries. Some analyzed samples even show signs of recrystallization, allowing the mortar to fill micro-fractures when absorbing moisture, similar to the behavior of certain modern materials. If verified, this would represent a technical achievement far ahead of its time. The Caribbean is no stranger to powerful hurricanes. Tulum lies in the path of storms intense enough to destroy wooden and poorly built structures. Yet the Temple of the Wind still stands, defying nature's violent assaults. Even more astonishing is that despite its small size, the structure is incredibly tight and solid. Its stones show no signs of displacement despite multidirectional forces. Some scientists speculate that the overall weight of the temple was carefully calculated, heavy enough to ensure stability, but not so heavy as to crack the bedrock. This represents a perfect balance of mass dimension and slope, an architectural optimization seemingly achieved through generations of accumulated Maya experience. But the greatest enigma is this: why can such a small structure endure far longer than many larger Maya buildings? Some inland temples located in calmer environments have deteriorated more significantly. This suggests the Tulum temple was constructed with methods specifically adapted to coastal conditions, implying that the Maya possessed sophisticated understanding of rock mechanics, wind behavior, and humidity. Some researchers even wonder whether the temple served as an experimental site for coastal construction techniques or whether it was built with extraordinary care due to its religious or astronomical significance. Its survival over centuries has inspired bold theories. Some believe the Maya understood how to choose energy-balanced points in natural terrain, a blend of intuition, observation, and inherited knowledge. Others propose that the temple functioned as a natural meteorological station, where shifts in wind pressure and atmospheric conditions were observed to predict storms. This might also explain why the temple produces a distinct sound when exposed to strong winds. Perhaps the sound was intentionally engineered as a warning signal, not merely a coincidence. All these elements combine to form a larger picture of the Maya's technical brilliance. Architects without steel concrete or machinery, yet deeply knowledgeable about wind, sea, stone, and how to build structures capable of resisting nature for hundreds of years. And despite extensive archaeological research, the central question remains unanswered. How did the Maya achieve such superior durability on one of the most dangerous construction sites in the Caribbean? Today, standing before the small temple, scholars and visitors do not simply see a ruin. They see a message carved into time that some ancient knowledge remains beyond our full understanding, and that pre-modern civilizations held secrets we are still trying to decipher. In that ongoing search, the Tulum Temple of the Wind continues to endure, echoing its silent question to the future: do we truly understand what our ancestors once knew? Metsamore, Uzbekistan, or rather the enigmatic name associated with an ancient city obscured by time, has long been regarded as one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of Central Asia. Despite the lack of clear historical records and ongoing debates about its true location, stories surrounding Metsamore evoke the image of a city that existed more than 4 millennia ago, bearing technologies, knowledge, and secrets far beyond the understanding of humanity at that time. In both local legends and modern archaeological studies, Metsamore is often described as a center of power and wisdom, a place where astronomy, religion, metallurgy, and urban organization converged, achievements that many contemporary civilizations had not yet reached. But among all the enigmatic elements surrounding Metsamore, the most shocking and most challenging to modern science lies in its advanced metallurgical capabilities, a technique that appears impossibly refined for a community living over 4,000 years ago. What do you think allowed Metsamore to achieve such an advanced level of metallurgy far beyond its time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Many studies depict Metsamore as a city with layered and sophisticated construction. Multiple stone-built walls, ceremonial structures on elevated platforms, astronomical terraces, and rock carvings recording the movements of celestial bodies. Yet none of these elements match the scale and refinement of the metallurgical system discovered at the site. These furnaces were not merely places to smelt copper or tin. The metals common in the early Bronze Age, but showed evidence of processing complex alloys and achieving temperatures far beyond what was believed possible for that era. This raises a series of questions still unanswered. Who were the people of Metsamore? Where did they learn metallurgy? Why did their knowledge surpass that of neighboring civilizations, including regions often recognized as cradles of early human development? Traces of the furnaces reveal that the people of Metsamore had an astonishing ability to control airflow. They created internal air channels that allowed temperature to rise evenly and remain stable, a technique normally associated with much later civilizations. Slag fragments found in the area show signs of alloys mixed with precise ratios, proving that ancient metallurgists were not working randomly, but following established formulas. Some samples even show evidence of high-purity gold, refining something that many contemporary civilizations could achieve only with very limited methods. Several archaeologists have admitted that Metsamore's metallurgical techniques surpassed not only those of ancient Eastern civilizations, but also those of many later societies that had stable metallurgical systems for centuries. Even more astonishing is the scale of the metalworking district. This was not a cluster of small furnaces, but an ancient industrial complex consisting of multiple rooms, kilns, mineral processing areas, storage spaces, and even designated zones for sorting materials before heating. Some scholars believe Metsamore may have been a central exporter of metals, especially copper and bronze alloys, to the surrounding regions, possibly playing a foundational role in forming early transcontinental metal trade networks. But what remains difficult to explain is why such an advanced industrial center appeared in a region where most inhabitants at the time likely practiced basic agriculture. How could a society with apparently modest surroundings develop a metallurgical system so advanced that it borders on the impossible? The mystery deepens further when researchers discover tools left behind that demonstrate extraordinary precision: razor-sharp metal chisels, hardened alloy wedges, and fragments of tools containing low-grade steel, all of which suggest that metallurgical knowledge at Metsamore extended beyond copper and tin. This fuels theories that they possessed a metallurgical tradition fundamentally different from other civilizations. Some bold scholars propose that this knowledge may have been inherited from an even older vanished civilization or developed independently through a system of science never recorded in surviving historical texts. Beyond metallurgy, Metsamore is also renowned for its ancient astronomical observatory, where stone arrangements were aligned to track cycles of the sun, moon, and constellations. Yet from today's perspective, scholars question whether the astronomical practices of Metsamore served solely ritualistic purposes, or whether they were directly tied to metallurgy. To master high-level metalworking, one must control timing, temperature, wind direction, and humidity, all factors strongly influenced by celestial and atmospheric patterns. Thus, the observation of the sky may not have been mere ritual, but an essential component of a large-scale metallurgical production system. Elsewhere in the region, researchers found rock carvings with peculiar symbols, circles, parallel grooves, shapes resembling nebulae or orbital paths. Some archaeologists claim these represent metallurgical notations depicting heating cycles or symbolizing the link between astronomy and alloy creation. But others, particularly supporters of ancient alchemical theories, believe these carvings preserve remnants of a lost scientific worldview, an ancient discipline that combined metals, aerodynamics, and cosmic observation. What amplifies the mystery is the sudden disappearance of Metsamore. There is no evidence of a major battle, no widespread weapon remains. Instead, the city seems to have been abandoned after an immense fire, though its cause remains unknown. One explanation suggests a catastrophic metallurgical accident. Extremely high temperatures inside the furnaces could have triggered a chain reaction that destroyed the entire complex. Another theory proposes a deliberate mass migration, perhaps because their metallurgical expertise no longer fit the shifting social or economic landscape of the time. All these elements, regardless of debates about its true location, make Metsamore one of Central Asia's most captivating ancient mysteries. It presents a startling possibility that advanced, highly specialized knowledge may once have existed in ancient civilizations but failed to be fully transmitted to future generations. The immense metallurgical system, precise astronomical observatory, undeciphered symbols, and sudden disappearance position Metsamore as a crucial puzzle piece in the broader question of humanity's forgotten scientific origins. Are we witnessing the faint traces of a lost industrial civilization, or is Metsamore a rare phenomenon that emerged under unique conditions we have yet to understand? Until these secrets are deciphered, Metsamore remains a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of ancient humans and a reminder that human history may be far deeper, broader, and more complex than we currently imagine. The Svetari tomb caryatids stand as one of the most extraordinary archaeological wonders of the Thracian civilization, a structure that carries the solemn presence of a royal tomb while concealing countless lost religious symbols, and above all, a place where scholars have struggled with unanswered questions for decades. Yet among all elements from architecture symbolism, sculpting techniques, to the multi-chambered layout, the detail that astonishes archaeologists the most lies in the fragile yet miraculous traces that remain the surviving colors on the caryatids preserved for more than 2 millennia in a sealed, humid, and cold underground environment. The red tint on the lips, the yellow on the garments, the black eyeliner, and the faint blue patches on their clothing remain visible, challenging modern understanding of ancient pigments and how ancient artisans made color live for so long. What do you think allowed these ancient pigments to survive for more than 2,000 years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When the tomb was opened, archaeologists were not only shocked by the mysterious half-human, half-plant caryatids, but also by the fact that they were not gray or white like typical Greek-Roman stone statues. Instead, they carried vivid remnants of an ancient world of color previously unknown. No one expected pigment to survive in a structure built in the 3rd century BCE, especially since ancient pigments typically degrade quickly under natural humidity, let alone in the trapped vapor and mineral-rich air beneath the earth. Yet at Svetari, the layers of color not only survived, but remained so clear that even a faint light could reveal the artisan's intent. The mystery begins with the fact that archaeologists cannot determine exactly what compounds were used to create the pigments. Initial mineralogical analyses showed that the pigments did not fully match common Thracian mineral powders, such as hematite or malachite, but instead contained a unique organic mineral mixture, seemingly refined through multiple complex processes. This raises the question: did the Thracians possess a special pigment-making technique used exclusively for royal rituals and guarded so closely that it disappeared entirely from history? No documents describing pigment formulas have been found, no mixing tools discovered in the area, and no trace of direct Greek influence, despite Greece's long tradition of mineral pigments. Many specialists believe this may be a ritual pigment, a sacred coloring used only for divine icons, rather than daily life, comparable to ceremonial pigments found in Egyptian or Greek temples, but with far greater longevity. Some theories go even further, suggesting that these pigments were mixed with a special organic binder, perhaps tree resin or animal oil processed through a secret method that stabilized the molecular structure. The perplexing aspect is this: no high-temperature technology or sophisticated chemical equipment existed at the time to produce pigments with such durability. How did they create a compound capable of resisting humidity oxidation and adhering tightly to limestone, a type of stone notoriously difficult for color preservation? The enigma remains unsolved. In the dim light of the tomb, the caryatids appear not only as half-woman, half-plant figures, but as living witnesses to a lost ancient art of color. The black eyeliner emphasizes spiritual awareness. The red lips give the impression of movement, while the yellow-blue hues of their garments radiate a sacred energy that the Thracians likely intended for the deceased. The act of painting the figures in a funerary context leads archaeologists to wonder, were these caryatids merely decorative, or were they part of a metaphysical ritual? Color in Thracian belief symbolized spiritual states, red associated with rebirth, black representing the soul's path, and blue symbolizing the heavens, the destination of the soul after death. When combined, these clues reveal that the Svetari tomb was not simply a burial site, but a map of rebirth encoded through colors, patterns, and symbols. The survival of these colors serves as the missing piece that allows researchers to trace back a symbolic language lost for thousands of years. Yet the mystery deepens. The Svetari caryatids are carved directly into the stone walls, meaning the artisans could not rotate the statues, adjust lighting, or work from movable blocks as Greek sculptors typically did. They worked in flickering torchlight within confined spaces, yet produced extraordinarily smooth lines, a soft, human-like upper body and a lower body transforming into a blossoming floral form from a sacred realm. The refinement of the carving invites the question, were these the creations of artisans specially trained for religious duties, and was the pigment part of the sacred ritual itself? Upon entering the central chamber, one encounters the characteristic three-tier cosmological structure of Thracian belief: the human world, the soul world, and the divine world. Curiously, pigment appears primarily in the middle tier, where the caryatids stand like beings tasked with guiding the soul to eternity. Applying pigment precisely in this transitional zone adds further symbolic weight, suggesting that color was not merely decorative, but functionally ritualistic. If true, the pigment at Svetari may have been a ritual key, a mystical code used to activate the spiritual journey of the entombed king. Yet the identity of the tomb's occupant remains uncertain. No inscription, no royal marker, no emblem confirms who lies within. Scholars speculate that it may belong to King Drumekites or to a supreme Getae leader, those who believed in immortality. Strangely, a figure of such power left behind no personal marks, as if his presence on Earth mattered less than his journey to the next world. If so, the pigment on the caryatids may represent his spiritual essence more than any physical symbol. Then comes another haunting question. Why was the tomb untouched? While other Thracian tombs were looted centuries ago, Svetari remained miraculously intact, its colors preserved, its sculptures unbroken. Was the tomb deliberately concealed by artificial terrain? Or did sacred rituals render the area forbidden for generations? Some scholars suggest that the Thracians created a false external surface to hide the entrance, or that the tomb once stood in a sanctuary where no one dared intrude. Whatever the case, the tomb's untouched state inadvertently preserved the ancient pigments better than any other Thracian site. Thus, after more than 2,000 years, the remaining pigments have become an irreplaceable treasure, not merely artistic remnants, but a doorway into a spiritual system swallowed by time. Every element of the tomb is harmoniously connected, the half-human, half-plant caryatids, symbolizing the soul's emergence, the three-tier architecture, representing the structure of the cosmos, the sun and spiral motifs hinting at cycles of rebirth, and above all the pigments, the seemingly minor detail that forms the greatest mystery. No other Thracian monument preserves such distinct traces of color, and no other pigment composition resembles the ones found here. This raises profound questions. Were these truly the works of royal artisans or of a secret guild practicing advanced techniques now lost to humanity? Could these pigments be evidence of a forgotten branch of ancient chemistry more sophisticated than we imagine? And perhaps most importantly, were these colors created not just for beauty, but to ensure that the king's soul could see the path to immortality? To this day, all theories remain speculative. No pigment sample is complete enough to replicate, no formula has been discovered, and no evidence explains the origin of these hues. Only the silent caryatids remain in the darkness of the tomb, bearing their fading but unyielding colors, reminding us that sometimes the most enduring things are the most fragile. And the greatest mystery of Svetari is precisely these unfading pigments, as though the ancient soul still tries to tell us something we are not yet able to understand. The Malta Buret culture is regarded as one of the greatest mysteries of the Upper Paleolithic, not only because of its age, over 24,000 years old, but also due to the complexity of its art technology and belief systems which far exceed what people once imagined about ancient groups living in the icy Siberian region. Located along the cold shores of Lake Baikal, the archaeological sites of this culture offer a completely different view of human creativity in prehistory. In a place seemingly inhabited only by simple hunter groups, surviving by following mammoth and reindeer herds, there emerged a unique artistic technical center filled with sophisticated artifacts that astonish modern archaeologists. In your opinion, what is the greatest mystery of the Malta Buret culture? Their origins, their astonishing mammoth ivory carving technology, or their sudden disappearance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first thing that captivates researchers is the extraordinary development of the Malta Buret culture within the context of 24,000 years ago. These ancient people not only crafted stone tools, but also built structured dwellings from animal bones combined with wood, showing organization and even symbolic meaning. They possessed the ability to create three-dimensional sculptures as refined, as if not more advanced, than those found in parts of Europe from the same period. This is surprising because Siberia at that time was far harsher than Western Europe, with extremely low temperatures and natural conditions that forced people to devote most of their time to survival. Yet the Malta Buret's people invested great effort in art, raising the question, what triggered this burst of creativity? The Siberian Venus figurines are the clearest evidence of this uniqueness. Unlike European Venus figurines, which often exaggerate reproductive features to symbolize fertility, the Malta Buret Venus figurines portray women in natural poses, clothed sometimes with coats and skirts, depicted through detailed carved patterns, something almost never seen in artwork from 24,000 years ago. These small sculptures were carved mainly from mammoth ivory, an extremely hard and difficult material requiring high skill and refined tools. This leads directly to the greatest mystery of this entire culture: mammoth ivory carving technology far ahead of its time, a scientific puzzle still unanswered. When examining the surface of the ivory sculptures, specialists observed unusually consistent cuts and patterns, showing none of the marks typical of crude stone tools used by other contemporary cultures. Many engraved lines are so sharp they resemble the work of tools with extremely high precision, almost like fine drilling or cutting instruments, despite the fact that the Malta Buret people possessed no metal. The depth, thinness, and consistency of the lines indicate that the artisans had exceptional skill, but even more astonishing is that they controlled force and angle with such precision that the ivory, hard yet brittle, did not crack. Modern optical studies of the carved marks reveal that many tiny details on the ivory sculptures could not have been created using typical stone tools such as blades, points, or rough cutters. Some researchers suggest that the Malta Buret people may have used bone tools sharpened to extreme fineness or multi-stage grinding and polishing techniques, but even then, the level of precision surpasses the technological capabilities of the era. For this reason, some scholars describe Malta Buret craftsmanship as a vanished technology, meaning they possessed a special method that was never passed on to any later civilization. The ivory animal figurines reinforce this sense of impossibility. Some depict birds with extremely thin wings, bears, with fur indicated by perfectly parallel lines, or abstract forms with ritual significance. Bird motifs are often thought to be linked to shamanistic practices, reflecting a deep and complex belief system far from simple. Some small masks have strange shapes, sometimes with non-human features, prompting debates over whether they represent complex spiritual practices or simply artistic imagination. Regardless, the ability to depict such detailed forms in a material as difficult as mammoth ivory sets Malta Buret apart from all other Paleolithic cultures. This uniqueness deepened even further with the discovery of the famous skeleton associated with the culture, the Malta Boy M01. DNA research on this 24,000-year-old child transformed our understanding of human origins. The results show that the Malta Buret people were genetically related to Upper Paleolithic Europeans and simultaneously shared 30 to 40% of their genome with the ancestors of Native Americans. This leads to the hypothesis that before the first groups crossed the Bering Land Bridge into the Americas, they already carried the genetic legacy of Malta Buret, meaning this Siberian culture may represent a key part of the story of the peopling of the Americas. Moreover, this genetic overlap raises a profound question. Why would a group living in Siberia be linked to both Europe and the Americas despite enormous geographic distances and the absence of any evidence of direct migratory routes among these regions at that time? A culture capable of influencing the genetics of two continents disappears entirely around 20,000 years ago. This is the central paradox. No one knows what happened to the Malta Buret people. Did they migrate, merge into other tribes, or were they forced by climatic changes to abandon the Baikal region? There is no continuous archaeological evidence linking them to later cultures. Their abrupt disappearance, combined with their astonishing ivory carving craftsmanship, creates the impression of an ancient knowledge system buried beneath Siberia's permafrost. Curiously, their techniques for carving ivory never reappear in any later Siberian or Eurasian cultures, as though this technology existed solely during the Malta Buret period and vanished along with them. When compared with Upper Paleolithic European cultures such as Gravettian or Aurignacian, Malta Buret shows both artistic similarities and profound technical differences. The greatest difference is not in style, but in technological process. European figurines were usually carved from softer materials like limestone or bone, whereas Malta Buret artists deliberately chose mammoth ivory, a far more challenging material. This demonstrates that they were not merely artists, but highly advanced technicians with a forward-thinking approach. All these factors combine to make Malta Buret one of the most enigmatic cultures of prehistory, a small population with massive genetic influence, living in extreme conditions, yet creating sophisticated art, lacking metal but carving ivory as if using precision tools, and ultimately disappearing without explanation. What remains are silent mammoth ivory figurines, yet they stand as undeniable proof that human beings 24,000 years ago possessed a level of technological mastery that continues to astonish scientists today, and prompts the final question: what did the Malta Buret people know that we still cannot perfectly replicate? The Samal Mkeley relief gates are among the constructions that most astonish Iron Age archaeology, not only because of the monumental scale of the gate structure, but also because of the remarkably sophisticated bas-relief carving techniques that seem impossible, far surpassing what was believed to be the technological limits of a small kingdom like Samal. When archaeologists first excavated the ruins of this ancient city in southern Turkey, they did not expect that beneath layers of soil and time lay a series of massive basalt slabs, carved deep, sharp, even and precise to a degree that seems as if they were created by a technology centuries ahead of their time. The city gates of Samal were not simply built from large stone blocks. Each slab appears to be a visual record of power, belief, technical mastery, and the mysteries embedded in the worldview of its inhabitants. The most overwhelming element is the depth of the carvings, not shallow, easy cuts, but thick, uniform, razor-sharp slices into extremely hard stone, forming lions, sphinxes, warriors, and deities with anatomical proportions so accurate that it is difficult to imagine they were created with stone or bronze tools. The artists of Samal seem to possess a deep understanding of animal and human anatomy, depicting muscles, lion manes, and the curled beards of deities with strokes that are both fluid and powerful, achieving a precision far beyond what many contemporary civilizations were capable of. This extraordinary sophistication raises a major question. What tools did Samal actually use? How were they able to carve basalt, a stone of great hardness, while maintaining such smoothness and uniformity as if the work had been done with a high-speed rotary tool? Where do you think Samal's beyond era carving techniques came from? Was it a lost technology, the skill of master artisans, or a source of knowledge we have yet to discover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. These gates are not only extraordinary in terms of technique, but also contain a profoundly mysterious system of religious and political symbolism. Hybrid creatures such as winged sphinxes, serpent-tailed beasts, curled-beard deities, and warriors in ceremonial armor appear in a deliberately structured layout. Their presence does not fully align with the artistic styles of the Assyrians, Hittites, or Phoenicians, suggesting that Samal may have possessed its own religious system, one erased from history. While major surrounding civilizations left behind extensive texts describing their mythology and beliefs, Samal left almost none, forcing researchers to rely primarily on these reliefs for clues. Why do the winged sphinxes hold central positions in these gates? Do they symbolize military strength, royal authority, or serve as protective spiritual seals guarding the city from supernatural forces? The answer remains vague, and the silence of history turns the Mkeley relief gates into an enigma yet to be deciphered. Many scholars argue that carving in such depth and precision requires a combination of skilled artisans and advanced tools. Yet archaeological evidence reveals no signs of such sophisticated instruments. There are no high-grade iron tools, no special abrasive materials, no signs of rotary devices or mechanical assistance. So what produced this illogical quality? Did the people of Samal possess a lost technique, or did they inherit technology from a civilization obscured in the historical record? This question continues to perplex archaeologists, especially since major empires like Assyria during the same period had only begun to develop basalt carving techniques, and even those did not reach the smoothness and structural balance found at Qal'a. Furthermore, the reliefs display a peculiar fusion of artistic styles: the bold, heavy strokes typical of Hittite craftsmanship, the detailed, curled beards reminiscent of Assyrian art, and the flexible composition seen in Phoenician works. What is striking is that Samal was not considered a major empire, did not possess exceptional resources, and was not thought to be a large center of power. Yet the artistic quality here surpasses that of many prominent regions of the same era. This has led to theories suggesting that Samal may once have been an important cultural or commercial hub, where master artisans from across the Levant gathered. But if so, why is there almost no written historical record? Why does Samal seem to have been erased from the historical map in such a puzzling way? The relief gates also hint at another mystery: their true purpose. Although positioned as city gates, the reliefs are not merely decorative or symbolic expressions of authority. They are arranged along a ritual axis in places where the king and ceremonial processions would necessarily pass. This leads to speculation that the gates may have been used for rituals involving communication with deities, or as places where the king performed sacred rites to activate divine authority. The stone lions, winged sphinxes, and deities carved into the slabs may have served as spiritual protectors rather than just artistic motifs. Some archaeologists even believe that the reliefs represent a form of sacred map, modeling the connection between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. Yet without written records, these interpretations remain only hypotheses. One cannot overlook the massive stone lions flanking the gates, the most powerful symbols of Samal. Their eyes are carved wide open mouths, agape with razor-sharp fangs, and manes rendered in wave-like patterns resembling metaphysical energy rather than natural anatomy. Strangely, this style does not appear widely in neighboring areas, leading some researchers to believe that these lions are not merely artistic representations, but depictions of a type of spirit lion in the local belief system. If so, this symbol likely played an important role in protecting the city from spiritual forces that the people of Samal believed were real. Even the inscriptions carved on some stones are steeped in mystery. They mention kings such as Panamua and Kilamua, yet the texts are fragmented and missing critical portions. None describe the construction of the gates, the purpose of the reliefs, or the identities of the artisans who created them. This has led some to suspect that earlier records were deliberately erased, perhaps by invaders or by the inhabitants themselves, before abandoning the city for unknown reasons. If Samal truly was absorbed by Assyria, why were these remarkably sophisticated reliefs not recorded in Assyrian accounts? A monumental and unique structure like Qal'a should have been mentioned frequently, yet the opposite is true. Lastly, the disappearance of the kingdom of Samal makes the mystery even more perplexing. An artistic tradition this advanced cannot simply vanish without leaving cultural traces. Major cities of the era all show clear evidence of decline or shifts in power, but Samal does not. The city appears to have been abandoned abruptly, as though its people left within a short period without dismantling or destroying their most important ritual structures. What forced them to flee? A natural disaster, war, disease, or something tied to their spiritual beliefs? no one knows. Today, when standing before the Samal Zinkhirli relief gates, one does not merely see an archaeological site, but a stone proclamation of a civilization that once reached the heights of technical and artistic mastery, then vanished without a trace. The deep carvings, the stern stone lions, the strange divine figures, and the silence of history create a feeling of both awe and unease. Perhaps the greatest mystery lies not only in the beyond-era carving techniques, but in the unanswered question, who taught them to do this, and why did every other trace of that knowledge disappear? The Los Lunas Decalogue stone has long been one of the most controversial archaeological mysteries in New Mexico, where a massive basalt boulder sits alone on a barren mountainside, bearing deeply carved Paleo-Hebrew inscriptions, straight, even, and highly systematic, as if created by a civilization well-versed in language and stone-carving techniques. When scholars first encountered this stone, what puzzled them was not only that the inscription resembled the structure of the Ten Commandments in the Bible, but also that it appeared in a region completely lacking any archaeological evidence related to ancient Hebrews, Phoenicians, or any culture originating from the Near East. In your opinion, could the appearance of an ancient Near Eastern script in America come from a lost civilization, an ancient transoceanic voyage, or simply a modern forgery? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In a dry, remote area, with no artifacts, no architectural remains, and no evidence that any ancient Semitic group ever existed there, the Los Lunas stone stands like a lonely island in a vast sea of historical emptiness. The grooves are so deep and even that it is difficult to believe they could have been made by a modern prankster, especially considering the hardness of basalt, which requires significant force and steady technique. Some archaeologists have attempted to argue that the carvings were created in the 19th or early 20th century, but the weathering on certain characters, the natural erosion along the edges, and the presence of an older patina layer render these arguments uncertain. Frank Hibben, the scholar who announced the stone in the 1930s, claimed that indigenous locals had known about it long before. However, there are no photographs, no old documents, and no independent evidence confirming this claim. Because of this, the Los Lunas Decalogue stone occupies a vague intersection between truth and falsehood, between history and legend, between science and phenomena that exceed conventional explanation. Although linguists have noted striking similarities between the inscription and ancient Paleo-Hebrew, this leads to a paradox. If the inscription is authentic, its creator must have belonged to an ancient Near Eastern culture. But if it is a forgery, the forger must have understood the language well enough to deceive experts, something arguably even harder to believe. Yet all these debates revolve around one central question, the greatest and most enigmatic question, and the core of the entire Los Lunas mystery: who carved the Ten Commandments on a rock in America? This is not merely an archaeological question, but a challenge to our entire understanding of human history. The first major hypothesis proposes that the Phoenicians, or a group of ancient Hebrews, may have crossed the ocean and reached the Americas thousands of years before Columbus. With exceptional shipbuilding skill, extensive Mediterranean trade networks, and proven long-distance seafaring ability, the Phoenicians were not incapable of such a journey. If they managed to sail around Africa, could traveling farther into the Atlantic truly be impossible? Supporters argue that the similarity to Paleo-Hebrew cannot be coincidental, and the resemblance to the Ten Commandments reinforces the idea that a Near Eastern group once reached what is now New Mexico. Yet the paradox remains: if they did come here, why is there no other evidence? No pottery, no settlements, No tools, only a single stone bearing the 10 Commandments. This makes the hypothesis fascinating, but structurally unstable. The second hypothesis suggests that a pre-Columbian indigenous civilization may have come into contact with the ancient Near East through little-known events or through an obscure, undocumented voyage. But this hypothesis is even harder to support because carving a long, structurally coherent inscription like this would require deep understanding of Semitic writing. That brings us back to the original paradox. If indigenous people had mastered the script well enough to inscribe it, why is there no trace of cultural blending in the archaeological record? Why is there only one isolated stone, completely disconnected from any cultural system? The third hypothesis, favored by mainstream archaeologists, claims that the inscription is a modern hoax. If so, the forger would have needed deep knowledge of Paleo-Hebrew grammar, access to strong tools capable of carving evenly into basalt, and the determination to climb a remote mountain and spend days or even months creating an inscription that no one would see for decades. A prank without an audience, without a target, without a purpose. Does that make sense? Furthermore, if the stone were carved in the 19th or 20th century, why do several characters show natural weathering that would require decades or longer to form? This inherent contradiction prevents the modern forgery hypothesis from becoming a definitive answer. Beyond all these hypotheses, what makes the Lunas Decalogue stone truly haunting is that it raises a question that transcends academia: is the history we know truly complete? If a stone inscribed with the 10 Commandments appears in America and cannot be proven real nor proven fake, it implies that our historical timeline may contain gaps we have not yet recognized. Perhaps there were forgotten trans-oceanic voyages, unrecorded cultural contacts, or small migrating groups carrying their beliefs, tools, and texts, but whose traces were erased by time, leaving only a single stone behind. With all its anomalies, ancient-looking script, in a land without ancient Near Eastern culture, carving techniques beyond the expectations of a simple hoax, weathering patterns difficult to fake, and the site's extreme isolation, the Lunas Decalogue stone stands like a partially open doorway to a chapter of history we have never read. It challenges the assumption that ancient people remained within the boundaries of their known civilizations. It forces us to reconsider whether we have underestimated their maritime capabilities. And most importantly, it compels us to confront what science is often reluctant to admit. Some pieces of history are missing, and sometimes a single mysterious stone is enough to shake the foundations of everything we think we know. The Dunad footprint stone is one of the most sacred and mysterious symbols of ancient Scotland, a carved footprint etched directly into the summit of the Dunad hill fort, once the power center of the Kingdom of Dal Riata. For centuries, this place was seen not only as a strategic hilltop fortress, but also as a ritual gateway where kings performed mythic inauguration ceremonies. What makes the Dunad footprint stone remarkable is how it combines political authority, religious symbolism, sacred tradition, and stone carving techniques far ahead of its time. This footprint is not just an archaeological artifact. It is an open question about ancient craftsmanship and mysteries that have never been fully decoded. What technique do you think allowed ancient people to carve a footprint so sharp that it has survived on hard stone for more than a millennium? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Historical records indicate that a Dal Riata king, upon ascending to the throne, had to place his bare foot into this carved footprint to affirm his legitimate right to rule before the gods and the people. This unique ritual makes the Dunad footprint one of the very few surviving inauguration stones, serving as evidence of an ancient ideology in which humans' land and power were bound by a sacred covenant. The footprint faces directly toward the valley below, a placement that cannot be accidental. This wide-open orientation resembles a declaration of authority. The person standing in the footprint steps not only into the position of their ancestors, but also looks upon the land as a symbolic merging with the territory they rule. This explains why Dunad was regarded as a central political religious hub, and why the footprint became an intersection of belief and power. A long-standing point of debate is that two footprints once existed at Dunad, one intact, the other eroded over time. No one knows why two versions were created, or whether they served identical or different rituals. Was one meant for a king and the other for a queen, or was one a later replica of a damaged original? These traces make Dunad a rare site, with multiple ritual layers associated with footprints symbolizing the succession of authority. Many theories suggest the footprint may relate to ancient Celtic rites in which tribal leaders married the land in a symbolic ceremony, demonstrating acceptance by natural forces. But all such ideas remain speculation, as no surviving record fully describes the ritual's meaning. The mystery deepens with the discovery of an Ogham inscription near the footprint, possibly reading, "Fingal stood here," or referring to a legendary figure. However, the carving has been distorted by time and weather, making interpretation difficult. If the inscription truly records the name of someone who performed the ritual, it raises the possibility that the Dunad footprint is not only symbolic, but also a physical record of a specific king or renowned leader. Yet no interpretation is universally accepted, leaving Dunad one of Scotland's most visually clear, yet intellectually puzzling, archaeological relics. However, the most mysterious and astonishing aspect of the footprint is its unusually sharp stone carving technique. Despite more than 14 centuries of exposure atop a hill battered by cold winds, heavy rain, and harsh Scottish climate cycles, the footprint retains an impressive crispness, deep edges, smooth curves, and a finish that looks as though it was carved with hardened metal blades, or even modern mechanical tools. For a culture believed to possess only rudimentary iron tools, creating such a deep, consistent, and polished carving on hard stone would require force and technique beyond typical expectations. The precision of each groove raises questions. What tools did the Dalriata people use? Ordinary iron hammers would be too dull to cut such fine lines, while abrasion techniques using stone or sand would struggle to achieve consistent depth and smoothness. Additionally, the footprint's near-perfect symmetry and uniform depth suggest it was not casually hand-carved, but may have been produced by ritual specialists or an exceptionally skilled team of craftsmen. Its near-original sharpness has led to theories that the footprint may have been recarved multiple times over generations to preserve its form for ceremonial use, or perhaps protected or covered during certain periods. Yet no concrete evidence confirms this. The mystery grows as archaeologists closely examine the stone surface. The carving shows little sign of the excessive manual smoothing that would suggest repeated refinishing. Instead, it appears original, as if the initial technique was so perfect that no later adjustments were needed. This sharpness poses a technological paradox for a civilization that left no traces of advanced tools. Furthermore, the footprint sits on exposed rock, subject to the extreme weather of the highlands, strong winds, low temperatures, mild acidic rain, and constant weathering. Logically, a soft or shallow carving should have eroded long ago. So what allowed it to remain nearly intact? Was the carving technique so sophisticated that the stone's surface gained extra resistance? Did ancient artisans choose a stone with exceptionally dense crystalline structure? Or did they apply a surface treatment unknown to modern archaeology? Each question uncovers a new layer of mystery, amplifying the enigma surrounding this unrecorded part of history. Many scholars believe the footprint at Dunad is not merely artistic or ceremonial, but embodies symbolic, supernatural authority. Carving a perfect footprint into stone, symbolizing the earth itself, may represent the ancient desire to fuse the king with the land. A flawless, sharp, enduring footprint may not only demonstrate craftsmanship, but reflect an intentional creation of an immortal symbol. Thus, its thousand-year durability might have been part of its sacred purpose. Furthermore, researchers have studied the footprint's size, approximately 27 centimeters larger than the average Celtic foot, to ask whose foot was it carved to match the real foot of a legendary leader, or intentionally enlarged to express the idea of a greater-than-human ruler? No evidence currently resolves this question. The Dunad footprint stone is therefore both concrete, a clear physical footprint, and abstract, opening countless questions about power, belief, technology, and ancient symbolism. Every detail from its hilltop location, orientation toward the valley, faint Ogham inscription, jewel footprints, and advanced stone carving technique contributes to the impression that this was not merely a coronation object, but the remnant of a complex belief system and a level of craftsmanship still not fully understood. And that enduringly sharp footprint, standing amid the wild Scottish landscape for more than a millennium, continues to challenge us with the same question: how did ancient people create such a perfect carving? And why did they craft something that even time struggles to erase? Rabana Mkeley Fortress, hidden deep within the Zagros Mountains of Kurdistan, is one of the most puzzling structures archaeologists have encountered in recent decades. Despite its massive scale stretching across steep mountain slopes, with walls, watchtowers, gates, and complex defensive structures, the fortress is almost entirely absent from historical records. No ancient chronicle describes it, no Parthian administrative document mentions it, and its true ancient name remains unidentified. This complete silence in historical sources makes Rabana Mkeley a true mystery, a place that seems to exist and not exist at the same time. When archaeologists first surveyed the area, they felt as if they were witnessing the remains of a military city erased from history, yet still standing, defying mountain winds and natural disasters for 2 millennia. The first striking feature is its location. Rabana Mkeley sits on natural slopes, using the mountain terrain itself to form a continuous defensive system. No known Parthian fortress shows such tightly coordinated planning, nor such optimal use of landscape. The twin fortresses of Rabana and Mkeley stand like 2 massive gateways, guarding the entrance to the Rania Valley, connected by walls that run along the mountainsides, forming a strategic network, both natural and man-made. Everything suggests that this place once held tremendous importance, though for what purpose, no one can say with certainty. Why do you think a fortress as massive as Rabana Mkeley completely disappeared from all historical records? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might reveal an entirely new angle to this ancient mystery. The mystery deepens as researchers approach the entrance of the Rabana area and discover 2 rock-carved reliefs. They depict a Parthian royal figure, possibly King Vologases or a regional prince. Yet their artistic style differs strangely from typical Parthian art. The posture is solemn, the clothing is rendered with unusually refined detail, and most importantly, the placement of the reliefs suggests they served as markers of political authority. This raises the question, was Rabana Mkeley not merely a fortress, but the center of a special administrative territory, perhaps Natunia, a city known only from a few ancient coins, but never located? If so, it would mean that we are standing before the remnants of a lost Parthian city, erased from history without leaving any textual trace. But the most mysterious, perplexing, and debated aspect of Rabana Mkeley is its dry stone construction technique walls, built without mortar, yet incredibly stable. This astonishes experts because the site lies on steep slopes, exposed to strong winds, frequent earthquakes, and harsh weather. And yet the ancient walls remain standing, unleaning, unshifted, and barely cracked. The stones are fitted so tightly that in many sections a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. This indicates exceptional stoneworking skill with precise calculations of gravity slope curvature and force distribution. Not only that, each stone appears to have been carefully selected, shaped to fit a specific position, sculpted for its place. Despite retaining a seemingly natural uncut exterior, nothing like stones worked with advanced metal tools. Many sections exhibit a deliberate inward inclination to prevent landslides and disperse impact forces, further proving a level of engineering far ahead of its time. Building walls this tall and this long, stretching for kilometers on rugged mountain terrain, without the use of mortar, remains an enigma. Where did the Parthians learn such a technique? Or was this a specialized construction tradition of Zagros Mountain stonemasons never recorded in architectural history? Another remarkable feature is the uniformity of construction, even though the fortress spans various elevations and terrains. This suggests an overarching master plan, not piecemeal construction across generations, but a unified design envisioned from the start. Transporting stones up steep slopes, adjusting them on uneven terrain, and using gravity-based compression to maintain stability demonstrates a technical sophistication on par with the world's most renowned dry stone structures. Some experts even compare the precision of Rabana's masonry to that of the Inca walls in the Andes, despite the two civilizations being separated by oceans and with no possible contact. The absence of mortar or any binding agent only deepens the mystery. What tools were used to achieve the necessary precision? What measurement techniques allowed such flawless alignment? No answers have yet emerged. Some archaeologists believe the technique stems from an ancient local mountain tradition, while others argue its sophistication exceeds what is commonly attributed to the Parthians. To this day, no theory provides a complete and satisfying explanation. Beyond its architecture, Rabana Mkeley contains remnants of mysterious rituals. In natural caves surrounding the fortress, archaeologists found altars and carved stone platforms, possibly tied to mountain religious practices. This suggests the fortress served not only military functions, but also cultural or spiritual roles for local communities. Yet what rituals took place there, who performed them, and why they vanished without a trace, all remain unknown. The strangest aspect of all is that Rabana Mkeley was abandoned abruptly. There is no evidence of warfare, burning, or destruction. No layer of ash, no arrows, no weapons scattered about. Everything feels silent, as if its inhabitants left peacefully, taking everything with them, leaving behind a perfectly intact fortress that no one ever returned to. Possible explanations include political upheavals within the Parthian Empire, shifts in trade routes, or environmental factors, but all remain speculative. no evidence is strong enough to be definitive. One compelling hypothesis suggests that Rabana Mkeley occupied a crucial point along a trade network crossing the Zagros Mountains, functioning as a checkpoint tax station or protective outpost for caravans. This could explain its formidable construction and carefully placed observation points. Yet if it was this important, why does no written record mention it? Who governed it? And why did it vanish entirely from administrative documents, something exceedingly rare for ancient fortified centers? All these unanswered questions make Rabana Mkeley one of the most mysterious fortresses in the Middle East. Yet among its many enigmas, the greatest remains its mortarless construction technique. This feature forces experts to reconsider what they think they know about Parthian engineering. Are we underestimating their technical abilities? Or was this the work of a highly specialized, now vanished group of mountain builders? The walls that have withstood 2,000 years of mountain weather seem to whisper that ancient knowledge has been forgotten, and Rabana Mkeley stands as its most vivid reminder. The Dmanisi skull enigma is considered one of the most controversial mysteries in paleoanthropology, not only because of its age, nearly 1.8 million years, but also because of its strange features that break every familiar evolutionary pattern. The skulls were found at the Dmanisi archaeological site at the crossroads of ancient migration routes where an early human community once lived among volcanic landscapes, predators, and harsh climate conditions. But what makes Dmanisi truly enigmatic is not its geological layers or the crude stone tools found there, but the anatomical form of the skulls themselves, especially Skull 5, considered one of the most complete ancient human skulls ever discovered. And from this single skull, anthropology entered a prolonged debate about human origins, the degree of variation within a single species, and the possibility that traits seemingly impossible to coexist in one individual could indeed exist together. What do you think explains the impossible combination of features in Skull 5? Is it evidence of an entirely different human species, or just an extremely rare variation of our early ancestors? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When examining Skull 5, the most shocking aspect is not its age, but the contradiction between its extremely small brain, only about 546 cubic centimeters, almost equivalent to a large chimpanzee, and its facial structure, jaw teeth, and cranial vault that align closely with Homo erectus, with some features even suggesting more advanced evolutionary development. This blend of primitive and evolved traits raises a profound scientific question that remains unanswered. How could a creature with such a small brain exhibit cranial morphology associated with a far more advanced species? It is not a random anatomical anomaly, but a nearly intact specimen preserved without geological distortion, making its features even harder to explain. Scientists note that the sharply sloping forehead, thick brow ridges, and strong, biting force, primitive characteristics, appear alongside a long, cranial vault and balanced head shape traits associated with Homo erectus. This combination makes it impossible to fit Skull 5 neatly into any previously established anatomical category. If one only considers brain size, it fits within Homo habilis, or even Australopithecus. But when the entire craniofacial structure is evaluated, it clearly aligns with Homo erectus. These two sets of traits should not exist in the same individual, and yet at Dmanisi they merge seamlessly. This is what creates the anomaly of Dmanisi, the existence of individuals whose anatomical characteristics seem to come from two different species. The shock intensifies when comparing the 5 skulls found at the site. Each displays extreme variations in shape, size, and proportions, so much so that without knowing they came from the same location and period, many researchers would classify them as belonging to entirely different Homo species. But geological layers and sediment traces confirm that they lived at the same time within the same community. A community of one species, multiple species, or an entirely separate evolutionary branch, yet unnamed. And if they truly belong to one species, then this level of variation far exceeds all previous understanding of natural anatomical diversity in early humans. Dmanisi compelled many researchers to propose a bold hypothesis. Perhaps what we once classified as Homo habilis, Homo rudolfensis, and Homo erectus were merely different forms within a single early Homo superspecies with far greater variability than seen today. Before Dmanisi, this idea was unacceptable. After Dmanisi, it became an unavoidable question. The hypothesis gains strength because Skull 5 is far too complete to dismiss. This is not a fragmented skull open to reconstruction errors. It is a solid specimen that allows precise identification of original morphology. And when compared with the other Dmanisi skulls representing young, old, and middle-aged individuals, the degree of variation among them surpasses the differences used to separate multiple Homo species in traditional classification. This leads to a controversial conclusion: perhaps we have created too many human species in the past, simply because the fossil fragments came from different locations. With the discovery of Dmanisi, this entire fragmented framework is called into question. But the contradictions of Dmanisi do not stop at anatomy. They extend to survival capability. A population with small brains using crude Oldowan tools somehow managed to leave Africa, adapt to new environments, and maintain a social structure stable enough to care for the elderly, evidenced by an individual who lost all teeth yet lived for many more years, implying extensive social support. This contradicts traditional evolutionary models, which assume that large-scale social care only emerges once the Homo brain becomes sufficiently large. Yet here was a small-brained hominin showing complex social behavior. So were they less intelligent than assumed or more? And what motivated them to leave Africa hundreds of thousands of years earlier than expected? Could it be that a large brain is not a prerequisite for adaptation? These questions deepen the anatomical contradictions of Dmanisi. If their morphology defies classification, their behavior defies expectations of cognitive evolution. When evolutionary simulations compared Dmanisi skulls with other Homo species, Skull 5 consistently positioned itself at a crossroads between primitive and advanced features. It does not fully match any single group, yet it touches all of them, making it a potential bridge between evolutionary branches, a testament that human evolution was not linear, but filled with unusual transitional forms, for which Dmanisi may be the clearest example. This also raises a critical question: what if classical ladder-like evolutionary models are entirely wrong? Dmanisi suggests that instead of a ladder early, humans may have existed as a diverse cloud, with multiple morphological forms, coexisting, experimenting, and competing. And within that cloud, Skull 5 stands out as the clearest evidence of an intersection between two seemingly incompatible lineages. This hybridization of features made Dmanisi a scientific earthquake. It is not merely an ancient skull. It is living evidence that human evolution is neither simple nor linear and does not obey the boundaries once defined by science. Ultimately, the deepest mystery of Dmanisi lies in this question: are these contradictory traits evidence of an undiscovered species, or simply extreme natural variation within the earliest members of our lineage. If it is natural variation, the entire human evolutionary tree must be rewritten. If it is a distinct species, then we have overlooked a crucial evolutionary branch located at one of the earliest migration crossroads of humankind. And today, the enigma of Dmanisi remains challenging every model and forcing us to accept that the human evolutionary journey may be far more complex than imagined, where a tiny skull can carry the signatures of two different species, and from that contradiction, raise questions that still have no answers. The Noth megalithic art panels are regarded as one of the most mysterious stone art collections of the Neolithic era, a world of symbols, both abundant and perplexing, far beyond the technological standards we assume people 5,000 years ago could achieve. The spirals, curves, concentric circles, and complex geometric motifs covering more than 300 massive stones have turned Noth into the largest library of ancient symbols in Europe, where each stone seems to contain an unread chapter of an undeciphered book. Although archaeologists have studied Noth for decades, the enigma surrounding these carvings only deepens. For the closer we look, the more we realize that their creators were not merely decorating or ritualizing the space. They seemed to be transmitting a metaphysical message that transcended their era. What tools do you think ancient people used to create such perfectly carved lines? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first striking feature is the sheer number of carved stones, far greater than in any other megalithic monument. Nowhere in the Brú-na-Bóinne complex, not even Newgrange, possesses a density of symbols so high that nearly every flat surface was used for carving. This raises the question: who created each stroke, over how long a period, and for what purpose? A community living thousands of years ago with no writing system and no hard metals investing such colossal labor, there must have been an exceptionally significant reason. The repeating motifs from single and double spirals to elongated S-shapes and sharp parallel lines seem to form a geometric language that no one today can understand. Some scholars believe they might relate to lunar cycles. Others think they represent shamanic or ritual symbolism, documenting transitions between the worlds of the living and the dead. Yet no theory is strong enough to explain all 300 stones. The concentric circles appear so frequently that they can hardly be interpreted as decoration. They closely resemble symbols of lunar phases, cycles of light and darkness, and rhythms of movement that ancient people closely observed. When Noth is compared with Newgrange, which aligns with the sun, many researchers gradually accept that Noth may have been Europe's oldest lunar observatory. The two internal passageways facing opposite directions reinforce this idea, as though they were designed to mark symmetrical points of the sky or of time itself. Numerous questions arise. Could Noth have been not a tomb, but an ancient astronomical machine, where stone carvings served as instruments to record celestial movements? Yet the greatest mystery, the one that makes Noth one of archaeology's most challenging questions, lies in the carving technique itself. When examined closely, the lines are not crude, not uneven, not chipped like marks made by simple stone tools. Instead, the grooves are uniform, sharp, consistent in depth, and many spirals possess near-perfect geometry. Some circles are so precise, they seem to have been drawn with a compass. This is not something easily achievable with Neolithic stone tools. Many motifs run in perfectly parallel lines, as though the artisan could control pressure and direction with a precision that even modern experts struggle to replicate using equivalent tools. So what did they use? This is the darkest corner of the Noth mystery. Tools of that era consisted only of stone, bone, and wood. No bronze, no iron, no durable wood-metal alloys. Yet the carvings appear as if made by metal-tipped instruments. The spirals are as round as if created with surveying tools. Some grooves show evidence of continuous rotational motion, similar to the principle of a low-speed mechanical drill. But archaeologists have never found any such devices at Noth or nearby sites. Experiments using stone hammers and quartz chisels consistently produce cracked, uneven lines and fail to achieve perfect spirals. This has led to the hypothesis that ancient artisans may have used a now-lost technology, perhaps involving hardened wood, abrasive sandwater, and rotational movement. But even with this method, producing hundreds of stones with such precision seems nearly impossible. The refinement of Noth's carvings raises a profound question. Did Stone Age people possess more advanced techniques than we assume, or are we overinterpreting symbols that were merely ritualistic rather than technical? Yet this argument collapses when confronted with the extraordinary consistency of the carvings. Such precision cannot be accidental, nor can identical stylistic features magically persist across generations without a defined tradition. Noth, therefore, seems not to be a collection of spontaneous artistic expressions, but the result of a purposeful, methodical craft, perhaps even a secret knowledge passed down through an elite lineage. This view gains strength from the overlapping carvings found on many stones. Older spirals are overwritten by newer ones, forming multi-layered histories on a single surface. This proves Noth was not built in one period, but functioned as a sacred site for thousands of years. Each generation added new marks, yet maintained the same symbolic system, as though continuing a hidden tradition understood only by a select few. If Noth's symbols truly represent a kind of cosmic language of the ancients connected to astronomy, ritual, or philosophy, then their sophisticated carving technique becomes evidence that they possessed mechanical and artisanal knowledge far beyond what history credits them with. The artisans of Noth seemed capable of producing curves and straight lines so precise that even today, using comparable Neolithic tools, modern humans struggle to achieve the same refinement. Could they have used a tool not yet discovered, a lost technique? A method of generating consistent rotational force that we no longer understand? Or did there once exist guilds of craftsmen with expertise vastly surpassing what we imagine for Neolithic societies? These questions hang in silence, and it is precisely this silence that makes Noth one of the rare monuments that seem more alien to us the more we study them. When light strikes the stones, the carvings rise like moving patterns, giving the impression that the motifs were meant not only to be seen, but to activate imagination and perception. Were the ancients speaking to us through a geometric language that has been forgotten? Were the spirals maps of the cosmos according to their worldview, or were they merely representations of natural rhythms, lunar cycles, flowing time, the pulse of existence? No one knows. And perhaps the strangest thing is this: Noth is not just an archaeological site, it is a mirror reflecting the limitations of our modern understanding. The more advanced our research tools become, the more mysterious the carvings of Noth appears, as if they belonged to a vanished intellect. The existence of 300 impeccably carved stones on the Irish landscape reminds us that human history contains chapters that were never written and may never be fully understood. And ultimately, the greatest question remains, the one left unanswered for decades. What tools did the creators of the Noth megalithic art panels actually use to carve stone? To this day, that remains Noth's most enduring mystery. and perhaps one of the most compelling ancient enigmas in all of prehistoric Europe. The Siberian Denisova bracelet is one of the artifacts that most profoundly challenges modern scientific understanding of prehistoric human technological capability, because it is not only an ancient bracelet made from extremely hard chloritolite stone, but also carries strange mechanical traces, especially a perfectly drilled hole that shows evidence of high-speed drilling technology, something entirely incompatible with a hunter-gatherer society over 40,000 years ago. When the bracelet was discovered in Denisova Cave in Siberia, archaeologists initially believed they had simply found an ancient piece of symbolic jewelry. But that assumption quickly collapsed when detailed analysis revealed that this was a product created with techniques far beyond what history has ever recorded for the Stone Age. What technology do you think was used to create this bracelet? And how could that change the way we understand human history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first striking feature is the bracelet's surface polished to the point of reflecting light with no cracks or chipping typical of primitive craftsmanship. This made many experts question how the Denisovans could have worked such a hard stone without damaging its internal structure. However, the true mystery only began when they closely examined the drilled hole, the most important detail, and the center of all scientific debate afterward. The bracelet's hole does not resemble any traces ever found on other Stone Age artifacts. It is perfectly circular, with a smooth interior surface and evenly spaced spiral grooves patterns that form only when a material is drilled by a bit rotating at very high and stable speeds. Under a microscope, researchers observed fine helical marks running along the wall of the hole. This immediately led to a difficult question. How could a population living 40 millennia ago produce a hole with characteristics similar to modern metal drilling technology? In archaeology, traditional stone tools can only produce holes by manual grinding, light rotation, or persistent abrasion. But these techniques always leave asymmetrical marks, rough cuts, and irregular drill paths. Yet in the Denisova bracelet, the whole wall is so uniform that even ancient Egyptian or Mesopotamian jewelry civilizations, known for advanced drilling, struggles to match such refinement. Many experts attempted to replicate the bracelet's hole using stone tools believed to be available at the time, but every attempt failed. None produced even spiral grooves, nor could they achieve the hole's glossy interior. This forced scientists to reconsider that the Denisovans may have created the hole using a rotational mechanism for which we have not yet found physical evidence. One hypothesis suggests they might have used a bow drill, a string-powered rotational tool known in later eras, but the spiral grooves are too even and deep, indicating a much stronger and more stable torque, far exceeding primitive bow drills. Some mechanical engineers in more specialized studies even concluded that the drill marks resemble those created by a rigid shaft drill, a tool that only appears once humans begin producing metal drill components. This is entirely incompatible with the artifact's age. The question expanded further. Did the Denisovans understand drilling pressure torque, rotational speed, and angle of contact when working with hard materials? Creating such a perfectly round hole is not merely a matter of strength. It requires refined experiential knowledge of how materials respond to mechanical force. If the speed isn't stable, the hole will wobble. If the force is too strong, the stone will crack. If frictional heat is not controlled, the material may become brittle. Yet the Denisova bracelet avoids all these issues, showing that its maker not only possessed technique, but also deep understanding of physical principles far beyond what science typically attributes to prehistoric humans. The more researchers analyzed, the more astonished they became when discovering that the hole's inner walls showed no signs of vibration, indicating that the rotating tool had been extremely well stabilized. This suggests the existence of some form of support structure similar to a drill rig or a stabilizing shaft tools that science has never uncovered in any Denisovan archaeological context. So where did this drill come from? This is the mystery haunting researchers. If the Denisovans had no metal tools, no wheels, and no mechanical devices, what allowed them to create a drilled hole comparable to one made by modern machinery? Some suggest they may have used organic materials, bone or wood polished extremely smooth, to create a rotating tool, but such materials are not hard enough to cut deep into chloratolite. Others speculate that they might have used quartz sand, harder than stone, combined with rotation to drill. However, this cannot explain the even spiral grooves or the smoothness inside the hole. Moreover, abrasive sand would leave a rough interior surface, not the polished finish seen in the bracelet. Another bold hypothesis proposes that the Denisovans developed a mechanical rotational system based on the principles of levers or flywheels. But there is no archaeological evidence to support this, leaving the idea as an open theoretical possibility. Nonetheless, it highlights a crucial point. The Denisovans' drilling technique lies completely outside the conventional framework of prehistoric technology. The existence of this bracelet challenges the entire model of technological evolution. If a prehistoric group living 40 to 50,000 years ago could create such a precisely drilled hole, are we underestimating the abilities of all prehistoric humans? And more deeply, could there have been ancient technologies that disappeared completely, leaving behind only their products and none of their tools? In archaeology, it is common to find tools but lose the finished product. But in Denisova's case, the opposite occurred. We have the product showing advanced technology, but no tools to explain its creation. This amplifies the mystery surrounding the bracelet, as if it were a fragment of a vanished technological tradition humanity did not know it once possessed. If high-speed drilling existed before the rise of agricultural civilizations, the technological history of humankind may be entirely different from what textbooks describe. The Denisova bracelet is not merely jewelry, it is evidence of a technological capability far ahead of its time, a trace of ancient intelligence obscured by millennia. And above all, its perfect drilled hole, something that matches none of the tools we know, continues to challenge the entire scientific world. Could there be a lost chapter of human technology, erased from history, but still preserved deep within the frozen lands of Siberia? The Talcadi star map stone is one of the most debated artifacts ever found in Malta, a seemingly ordinary stone that unexpectedly reveals layers of mystery related to the ancient ability to observe the sky, stone carving techniques, and early astronomical knowledge. The stone was discovered in the ruins of the Talcadi temple, a prehistoric structure located on a hillside in the northeastern part of Malta. From the moment it was first exposed to sunlight, it provoked profound astonishment. A broken slab containing curves, symbols, segments, and a composition suggesting that it was not a spontaneous artistic creation, but rather a type of star map or early astronomical chart meant for a serious and specific purpose. Yet its true meaning remains entirely beyond modern understanding. The intrigue of Talcadi arises not only from what is carved onto the stone, but also from the cultural context of Neolithic Malta, a civilization far from major centers like Egypt or Mesopotamia, yet one that built megalithic structures with remarkable precision and astronomical alignment. All these elements blend together to form a larger question: how much did the ancient Maltese really know? Do you think the ancient Maltese truly possessed astronomical knowledge far beyond what we imagine today? Or was this stone simply a perfect but accidental creation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. One of the first striking features of the artifact lies in the fact that it was carved onto a stone, broken into several pieces. However, the fractures do not obscure the overall structure that clearly reveals systemization: wide arcs, evenly spaced segments, small symbols positioned in a way that implies calculation, and an overall layout resembling a circle or semicircle representing the sky as seen from ancient Malta. Some research watchers believe the stone depicts the movement of celestial bodies, possibly the moon, or constellations such as Orion or the Pleiades, which played important roles in agriculture rituals or maritime navigation. If so, the Talcadi star map stone could be one of the earliest star maps in the Mediterranean, potentially older than early Egyptian astronomical systems. But without a written script or recognizable symbolic system for comparison, all interpretations remain speculative. The discovery site of the stone raises additional questions. The Talcadi temple is not a massive monumental complex or ceremonial center like the Gantija or Mnajdra temples in Malta, yet it contains an artifact with extremely strong astronomical characteristics. This has led scholars to consider various possibilities. The temple may have been used for observing stars to create an agricultural calendar, critical for a society living on a dry island, where crop cycles depend heavily on seasonal changes. The stone may have served maritime navigation, helping ancient Maltese sailors orient themselves in the Mediterranean. Or it may have been used in rituals dedicated to celestial deities, similar to how many ancient civilizations viewed the sky as a divine clock left by the gods. All these theories are plausible, yet none carry enough evidence to be confirmed. However, the greatest and most controversial mystery does not lie in the symbols themselves, but in the extraordinary precision of the carved lines. When examining the Talcadi star map stone, the most striking detail is the way the curves were made smooth, consistent, and exact, to the point that archaeologists suspect the ancient carver must have used tools or techniques far more sophisticated than anything currently known from that era. The curves do not deviate or wobble and possess nearly identical radii, an achievement difficult to replicate with simple, crude tools. Several intersections between the lines suggest geometric calculation requiring the maker to observe carefully and understand proportional relationships within a system much larger than the stone itself. This is why the fourth section has become the focus of debate. How could a civilization not known for advanced mathematics produce carvings marked by such geometric and technical precision? Some experts suggest that the curves could have been made using stretched cords or simple arc-making tools. However, the uniformity of the lines makes this theory unconvincing. If cords were used, vibrations or irregularities in the rough stone surface would have introduced small inaccuracies, but Talcadi shows none. Instead, the lines are clear, deep, and evenly cut, suggesting a technique with high mechanical stability. Another theory proposes that the ancient Maltese may have had finely sharpened copper or stone tools, but achieving perfectly curved lines would still require exceptional control skill and consistency qualities rarely observed in other Maltese artifacts. This raises an even larger question Does Talcadi represent a fragment of lost knowledge, or is it merely a rare artifact preserving the trace of an advanced technique that was not used elsewhere? The segmented lines on the stone also display cyclical repetition, strongly reminiscent of how ancient civilizations tracked celestial cycles to form calendars. Some segments follow relatively consistent spacing, implying that the stone's creator understood proportionality and rhythmic recurrence. This is especially unusual because typical Neolithic Maltese decorations lack modular or mathematically consistent structures. Most motifs are symbolic or simplistic geometric patterns devoid of technical function. Talcadi, however, is a complete anomaly. It is neither decorative nor representational nor explicitly religious, but resembles a data table, a form of scientific notation expressed through an undeciphered, symbolic language. This stark contrast has led many scholars to propose that Talcadi may have been produced by an elite group with exceptional astronomical capabilities. But this in turn raises new questions. If the ancient Maltese possessed advanced astronomical knowledge, why are there no other clear traces? Was this knowledge restricted to a small group? Did it disappear due to cultural changes, natural disasters, or societal collapse? No definitive answers exist. Another layer of mystery lies in the broken state of the artifact. The remaining fragments showed truncated lines, making the original composition difficult to reconstruct. Some believe the stone broke due to earthquakes or structural collapse. Others think it was deliberately destroyed, possibly during a ritual or religious shift. There are even debates suggesting early 20th century archaeologists might have accidentally broken it during excavation. Regardless of the cause, the breakage only deepens the mystery. If the stone were whole, the carvings might have revealed an even more precise and complete astronomical system, one now lost forever. All these elements make the Talcadi star map stone one of the greatest challenges to modern archaeological reasoning. It refuses to fit neatly into any developmental model typically assigned to Stone Age civilizations. It is more complex than expected, more precise than imagined, and more enigmatic than any other contemporaneous artifact in the region. The perfectly smooth, circular, consistent lines force researchers to ask the most difficult question: how could ancient people create something so similar to an astronomical chart without instruments, without measurement systems, and without any documented scientific tradition? Perhaps Talcadi is evidence of a form of knowledge that disappeared completely. Perhaps it is the remnant of an intellectual group unrecorded by history. Or perhaps it is a beautiful coincidence in which indigenous art unintentionally aligns with scientific precision. Yet the more scholars study it, the clearer it becomes that the likelihood of these lines being accidental is nearly zero, and in this improbability lies the enduring allure of Talcadi, a reminder that history is shaped not only by what we know, but also by what we have yet to comprehend. The magnificent cliffside paintings of the Hashan cliffside rock paintings are regarded as one of the most enigmatic visual heritages of ancient culture in southern China. Stretching across sheer cliffs, rising dozens of meters above the calm river, below thousands of symbols, human figures, animals, and ritual objects such as bronze drums have endured for millennia, challenging modern science and advanced conservation technologies alike. The scale, the difficulty of their location, their symbolic depth, and the mysterious craftsmanship behind them have made this site a living archive of an almost forgotten ancient civilization. Yet among all the astonishing aspects, one mystery surpasses the rest. The colors of the paintings remain remarkably intact, unpeeled, unfaded, despite 2,000 years of harsh weather. This mystery lies at the core, the pigment formula used by the ancients. And to this day, it remains unresolved. In your opinion, what allowed the colors of the Hashan cliffside paintings to survive for more than 2,000 years without fading? Share your thoughts in the comments below. To understand why this mystery overwhelms researchers, one must imagine the circumstances under which the paintings were created. Ancient artisans had to extend their bodies over sheer cliffs 70 to 90 meters high, with no remaining evidence of scaffolding, long ladders, or support structures. This raises questions about their methods of access. Did they stand on rafts when river levels were much higher thousands of years ago? Did they possess a rope climbing technique now lost? The mystery of how they reached the surface only intensifies the enigma of their lasting pigments. How could paintings created under such perilous conditions survive unchanged through time? The mystery deepens when considering the scale. An estimated 1,800 figures were painted, all using a similar palette dominated by reddish-brown hues. This dark red not only remains consistent in tone, but adheres so firmly to the rock that acid rain-wind erosion and tropical humidity have barely worn it down. If the paintings had been sheltered indoors, the mystery would be easier to explain. But in reality, they sit fully exposed on an outdoor cliff face under scorching sunlight, moisture, and even weeks of dense fog. Yet the colors have not washed away. The lines remain crisp, defying natural law. Archaeologists, geologists, and chemists have conducted dozens of pigment analyses. They discovered traces of hematite, a red iron oxide commonly used since prehistoric times, and elements such as clay, silica, and organic materials like animal fat, blood, or tree resin. However, the most astonishing finding is the presence of a mysterious binding agent that not only helps the pigments adhere, but also allows them to penetrate deep into the rock surface, almost like forming a natural protective armor. Science has identified a few components, but the complete formula, including mixing ratios, mineral treatment, heating methods, or curing techniques, cannot yet be reconstructed. Some samples even suggest the pigment underwent a special hardening process, causing it to merge into the rock rather than simply sit atop it. This raises further questions. Could the ancients intentionally induce chemical reactions with limestone or sandstone? Did they use heat? Did they understand how to activate minerals using proto-metallurgical techniques? Or did they stumble upon a natural method unknown to modern science? If the pigments relied solely on raw minerals, they would have washed away after a few hundred years, especially in Guangxi's harsh climate. Yet after more than 2 millennia, the reddish-brown tones still glow vividly. This forces researchers to consider that the Luoyu people may have known how to create hybrid, organic-inorganic binders beyond what modern techniques can easily replicate. Another intriguing hypothesis involves the geology of the Hashan cliffside itself. Some researchers propose that certain minerals in the rock enhance adhesion between the pigment and the surface. Under prolonged sunlight, the pigments may undergo photochemical reactions that strengthen their durability. However, if geology were the decisive factor, nearby cliffs should show similar preservation, but none do. Thus, geology serves only as a partial explanation. Other scholars speculate that the painting technique contributed to the longevity. The artists may have applied multiple layers of pigment, each containing different binding concentrations, allowing deeper absorption into the rock. This resembles mineral painting techniques found in other ancient cultures, though Hashan's resilience surpasses them all. This raises a tantalizing possibility Perhaps the artisans possessed chemical knowledge far ahead of their time, or inherited a highly refined craft tradition that has since vanished. Another strange aspect is that the colors barely fade under sunlight, while most mineral pigments weaken with prolonged exposure. Scientists have tried simulating aging using artificial UV radiation, but Hashan's pigments proved far more durable than typical hematite mixtures. This supports the theory that the ancients added some unidentified additives to the pigment. The ritual dimension must not be overlooked. The paintings were likely not decorative, but part of large-scale religious ceremonies, community rites, or spiritual declarations. If the paintings carried sacred meaning, artisans may have used rare materials or guarded pigment formulas as tribal secrets never meant to be widely shared. The pigment's longevity thus reflects not only technical mastery, but also profound spiritual intention embedded in every stroke. Despite technological advances, scientists still struggle to decode the pigments, partly because they cannot remove large samples without damaging the murals, and partly because time has altered the pigment's internal structures, making reconstruction difficult. Laboratories worldwide have attempted reproductions based on known components, yet none have achieved the same durability, adhesion, or color quality as the originals. For all these reasons, the millennia-lasting colors have become the defining symbol of the Hashan mystery. They demonstrate not only advanced ancient techniques, but also highlight how little we truly know about the capabilities of early civilizations. The ancients may have possessed natural knowledge that the modern world has forgotten as civilization evolved along different paths. The cultural background of the Loyu people, ancestors of some groups in Guangxi and northern Vietnam, makes the mystery even richer. The region is known for bronze drums and fertility rituals. The use of red pigment may symbolize life power and communication with the divine. Thus, the pigment secret reflects not only science, but also the worldview of an ancient culture. From afar, the reddish-brown patterns still stand out sharply on the pale cliff face, as if painted only a few years ago. The figures with outstretched X-shaped arms, the ritual objects, the silent symbols, all seem to narrate a story across time. And the pigment's unbelievable durability amplifies that story, compelling later generations to ask, do we truly understand what our ancestors achieved? Is there a forgotten link between nature and ancient knowledge? To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. But every time sunlight strikes the Hashan cliff, making the ancient red glow like a flame of time, we are reminded of one truth: some ancestral knowledge endures far beyond modern theories, and Hashan is its clearest testament.